Chapter 27. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Little Olive City. A distance of 10 miles was simply not enough to prevent a head-on collision at the Golden Core level. A gust of wind blew past, and countless roof tiles were lifted up. Those who were unlucky enough to have their heads smashed and bleeding didn't even have the time to curse out loud before they were shaken to the ground by the earth-shattering sound that followed. The child stopped crying. The woman, holding him, had a panic-stricken expression. She looked towards the skies outside the city. Up there, black and gold colors wove together. This was a scene that only appeared in myths and legends. Countless people stared blankly at this scene. It was like a great stone was pressing down on their chests. Their faces paled and they gasped for breath. Zhang, who couldn't hide the worry in his eyes. Beside him was the pale Zhang, who had a fascinated look on her face. She whispered, "Zhang, is this the strength of a cultivator?" Zhang, they are not ordinary cultivators. They are like teacher, powerhouses that have reached the Golden Core Great Tao. Zhang pursed his lips. In the end, he didn't say anything. Either one of the two people fighting here was far stronger than their teacher. They were at least at the 6th level of Golden Core and above. Once they stepped into the late Golden Core realm, every single one of them had the chance to form a nascent soul. Zhang's eyes brightened. I really hope that one day I can have the qualifications to interfere in such a battle. Just how vast of a world is that? Zhang smiled and nodded. That day will come, but deep in his heart he felt a bit bitter. Even if he had a good cultivation talent, he still didn't know if he could interfere in today's battle. This was Golden Core. But what the two of them didn't know was that the Qinyu who they thought was doomed to struggle in the mud for the rest of his life was actually the closest to this battle. Moreover, he was waiting for a chance to attack. Yes, Qinyu didn't run away. He withstood the terrifying pressure and retreated further away to avoid the shockwaves. Although he was in a distressed state, his eyes still stubbornly stared at the battlefield. Ningling could erupt with a formidable strength that could strike a Golden Core. This far surpassed Qinyu's expectations, but she must have paid a tremendous price to do so. Otherwise, when she was trying to kill Zhu Hai, she wouldn't have been in such a perilous situation. Moreover, this strength couldn't last for long. Her pale face and the dim, dazzling golden light around her were the best proof. Once Ningling was defeated, Black Sky Demon would surely kill him in order to avoid retaliation. And facing the pursuit of a Golden Core cultivator, he had no confidence he could escape. Of course, this was the most important reason, but it wasn't the only reason. Qinyu couldn't help but admit in his heart that he couldn't watch Ningling wither away like this. Then let's fight. He believed that Ningling still had cards in her hand. As long as he waited for a chance, he would make his move. The difference between a 4th level foundation establishment cultivator and a 6th level Golden Core cultivator was as vast as the heavens and earth. As Black Sky Demon and Ningling battled each other, Black Sky Demon no longer bothered with Ningling. But what he didn't know was that a certain little bug that he had completely ignored was waiting for him to reveal a flaw. Then it would reveal its slightly immature fangs and tear open his fresh and powerful artery. Black Sky Demon had a calm expression. Even though his eyes were still filled with vigilance, there was still a bit of calmness in them. Even if he was a direct descendant of an ancient family clan, the disparity in strength couldn't be changed. The bloodline power that had just been activated was about to run out, right? Fortunately, he had chosen the right time to strike. Otherwise, if the bloodline power accumulated even more, it would be even more difficult to kill her. Looking at the flawless beauty in front of him, Black Sky Demon couldn't help but praise and feel regret. He praised her for her strength and brilliance, but he also regretted that she would soon perish. She was like a meteor, dragging a long and gorgeous trail of light in her wake. She illuminated the skies for a moment before fading away. There was only a thin layer of golden light left over from Ning Ling's body. It stuck to the surface of her body, filled with sorrow and sorrow. Black Sky Demon smiled. "Let's end this." He flicked his sleeves, and a massive mass of demonic energy rushed forwards, richer and colder than before. "This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." So he had been preserving his greatest strength all this time in order to use this killing strike. Ning Ling's dim eyes suddenly lit up. Black, demonic energy reflected in the curves of her beautiful pupils, refracting a brilliance that made it hard for others to look directly at her. She lifted her hand, her 10 fingers fluttering up and down like butterflies. She formed some sort of cryptic law formula, and the temperature of the world began to rise at an astonishing speed. Black Sky Demon's complexion changed. He only had time to roar out loud before his figure was submerged in golden flames. Tongues of fire wildly leapt about. But in the end, he still erupted with the ruthlessness of a demonic core cultivator. He didn't retreat to defend himself, but instead stimulated the demonic energy, bringing with it an even more brutal and brutal momentum. Ning Ling powerlessly waved her hand. This hidden strike seemed to have exhausted all of her strength. The last bit of golden light covering her body shattered in the collision. She spat out a mouthful of golden blood. She was sent flying backwards, her face deathly pale. Bang! The golden flames seemed to be torn apart by an invisible hand. Black Sky Demon's entire body was covered in burn wounds, and his astonishing aura was weakened to the extreme. His eyes were cruel and filled with fear. He roared out loud, "Die!" He lifted his hand, and black demonic energy rapidly gathered. But just as he was about to attack, a cold chill rose up in his heart, making him feel as if he had fallen into an icy lake. Without time to think, he instinctively shouted out loud. He crazily stimulated the demonic energy in his body, forming a thick barrier behind him. In the next moment, the black corpse sealing nail brazenly tore through the obstruction of the demon chi in a cold and resolute manner and struck his back. "Ah!" Black Sky Demon roared out in pain. His weakened aura rapidly fell once more, nearly dropping to the golden core level. The demonic artifact corpse sealing nail had the most terrifying killing power against demonic path cultivators. This could be said to be a powerful irony. Disappointment flashed in Qin Yu's eyes, but he didn't pause in his movements. He rushed forwards and grabbed onto Ning Ling, turning around and rapidly fleeing, leaving a trail of gray dragons in his wake. He didn't even care about the precious demonic artifact corpse sealing nail. Behind him, Black Sky Demon's hateful roar echoed out. "Junior, I will tear you to shreds." Demonic energy gushed out, and he shot into the skies. A golden core was still a golden core. Even though it was weakened to the extreme, its speed was still astonishing. Black Sky Demon's face twisted. He never thought that after he attacked, he would be forced into such a distressed state by 2 juniors. In particular, that boy had to die. At this time, Qin Yu came to a sudden stop. Spirit Stab erupted without reservation as he slashed out with a cold blade. Caught off guard, Black Sky Demon had to withstand the might of Spirit Stab. Even though he was a golden core cultivator, his head ached and the demonic energy around him stagnated. Puff! The cold blade pierced through the demonic energy and fell between Black Sky Demon's eyebrows. It tore through his flesh and blood to reveal his pale white skull, cutting him down. "Junior!" Black Sky Demon was like a crazed demon. His face was covered with blood, and his eyes seemed as if he wanted to swallow Qin Yu alive. But Qin Yu had already turned around. Without hesitation, he continued to flee. In several breaths of time, he ran 1,000 feet away and disappeared into the forest. Bang! Demonic energy erupted, and the ground cracked apart. Black Sky Demon chased after him. Wherever he went, trees would fall down and be crushed to pieces. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. A golden core cultivator really wasn't easy to kill. Killing He knew was the result of being too stupid, but he was still far from being able to do so by himself. He stuck close to the ground and activated Gale, stepped to the limit. But he was only at the 4th level of Foundation establishment, and he was also holding on to Ningling, who had lost the ability to move. It was natural for him to hear the loud noises behind him. He couldn't worry about anything else. Qin Yu shouted out, "Open your mouth!" Before Ningling could respond, she was brutally attacked by him. "This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." She stuffed several pills into her mouth. Her eyes widened, revealing a bit of annoyance. But then she froze. An inconceivably potent medicinal efficacy circulated through her body, transforming into spiritual strength that rapidly replenished her nearly exhausted magic power. Even with her status, she had only experienced this sort of medicinal efficacy once before. That was many years ago when an elder had given her a precious marrow cleansing pill. Although the effects were completely different, the feeling of the medicinal efficacy spreading through her body was the same. Ningling's heart shook. She looked deeply at Qin Yu and then closed her eyes to absorb it with all her might. But at this time, Qin Yu didn't have any thoughts of paying attention to the changes in her expression. After stuffing some pills into Ningling's hands, he swallowed several. Bang! A powerful medicinal efficacy erupted. Qin Yu's magic power rumbled within his body, and the rate at which it was consumed rose by 10 times. His body drew a series of afterimages as he fled through the complex terrain of the forest. This sort of eruption of magic power in exchange for speed was a taboo of Gale step. Not only was it impossible to maintain this sort of consumption for long, but it also surpassed the limits of a cultivator's mortal body. Doing it once or twice might be fine, but doing it again and again would cause terrifying damage to the mortal body. Qin Yu was well aware of this, but he still chose to use it without hesitation. He needed to buy time for Ningling to recover. Moreover, after tempering his mortal body for over a year and consuming countless pills, he had a certain degree of confidence in the strength of his mortal body. Black Sky Demon's face was filled with cruelty. Even though Qin Yu had used a taboo technique to temporarily open up some distance, Black Sky Demon wasn't worried at all. This sort of action was no different from quenching thirst with poison. Soon, Qin Yu would vomit blood and fall to the ground, powerless, allowing Black Sky Demon to slowly torture him. But as time passed, Black Sky Demon's complexion became increasingly strange. It was a mixture of anger, shock, and bewilderment. According to his estimations, the boy in front of him should have already fallen to the ground in pain, but he was still running away. He was still as fierce and powerful as before, without any signs that he was about to collapse. "Bastard, where did you get so much magic power and such a powerful mortal body?" Black Sky Demon cursed in his heart. Ningling opened her eyes. As she looked at the much paler and calmer face that was just inches away from her, her eyes were a bit vacant. Before she could speak, several more pills were shoved into her mouth. There were so many of them that she found it hard to swallow. "Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, I can't last much longer. You had best restore your strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, we really will die here." The low and deep voice startled Ningling. It was only then that she discovered that his eyes were red and his pale face was covered in red lines. This was the appearance of his tiny blood vessels being unable to withstand the pressure and bursting apart. Thinking about how he was withstanding a horrifying pain beneath his calm exterior, Ningling was shocked. She swallowed the pills and closed her eyes to continue refining them. An hour later, she opened her eyes once more. A divine light flashed through them. As for Qin Yu, who was holding on to her, his robes were soaked with blood. Seeing her wake up, he tried to smile but spat out a mouthful of blood and his field of vision darkened. Ningling held on to him. She anxiously asked, "Junior Apprentice brother, are you all right?" Qin Yu forced himself not to fall unconscious. He took out a pill and swallowed it. "Hurry and run." A white cloud condensed beneath Ningling, supporting the two of them as they howled into the distance. But this magic tool had been damaged before. Even if it had a self-recovery attribute, the power it could display was still limited. It was unable to shake off the cruel and violent aura behind them. One in front, one behind. Both sides raced deep into the mountain forest with everything they had. Muffled and enormous bangs rumbled without end, causing the entire mountain forest to be stirred into a state of chaos, and countless birds and beasts fled in all directions in a sorry state, while feeling extremely terrified. During this process, Black Sky Demon's aura gradually moved further away. Although it was still locked onto them, it seemed to represent a beautiful omen. Before long, they would be able to safely escape. Chapter 28. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Ningling's heart relaxed. She looked down, a bit of guilt and gratitude in her eyes. Today's dangers had all arisen because of her. Qin Yu had only been caught in the crossfire, but he hadn't run away. Rather, he had stayed behind to resist Black Sky Demon. If it weren't for this, she would have already died in his hands. Moreover, the clues that Qin Yu had revealed were far more astonishing than she had expected. Ningling couldn't help but wonder just how many more secrets did he have on his body? As she thought back to the overwhelming accusations and ridicule from the Eastern Mountain sect, she faintly smiled. After deceiving so many people, Qin Yu must be feeling proud of himself. In the future, when those people discovered the truth, what sort of expressions would they have? Unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to see it. Qin Yu suddenly opened his eyes. Their gazes met, and Ningling panicked. She hurriedly averted her eyes. Qin Yu coughed. Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, how is the situation? Ningling said, Black Sky Demon is even further away from us. It's just that his powerful divine sense has locked onto us. Perhaps it won't be too long before he gives up. Her eyes brightened and earnest. Junior Apprentice Brother Qin Yu, thank you. Qin Yu waved his hand. He furrowed his eyebrows in deep thought. After several breaths of time, he said, Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, something isn't right. A golden core cultivator has many methods, and their cards are beyond our imagination. If you can recognize Black Sky Demon, then he isn't some nameless character. How could such a powerhouse of the demonic path be sent away so easily? Ningling frowned. Black Sky Demon is an illustrious and famous character of the demonic path. If you say that, then I also think things are going too smoothly. She looked up and swept her eyes around the quiet mountain forest. Although the radiating auras of both sides had caused all living beings in the forest to flee, this silence still revealed an invisible, oppressive pressure. Suddenly, deep and low roars rose up from all directions. Strong figures rushed out, locking onto Ningling and Qin Yu. Their eyes were icy cold, cruel, and filled with hostility. Above their heads, the screeching of the wind was accompanied by the whistling of the wind. A few exceptionally large goshawks were circling in the sky, their 10-meter-long wings casting large shadows on the ground. These birds and beasts were not ordinary wild beasts. Rather, they had opened their spiritual sense and were able to absorb the essence of the sun and moon. They were intelligent monster beasts. At this moment, their eyes were completely pitch black, as if they had been dripped with ink. There was no other color in their eyes. Ningling shouted out loud, Dark Sky, beast dominating art! A black panther turned its head as it ran. Clear fluctuations of emotion flowed through its black eyes as it spoke. Ning Family Jr., you are quite knowledgeable. You actually recognize my supernatural beast controlling ability that has been passed down since ancient times. Then you should be well aware that these monster beasts are all my avatars right now. If they crazily attack you without fear of death, do you think you can escape? After a pause, Black Leopard's eyes fell on Qin Yu. He chuckled. Of course, If you are willing to be killed, then I can guarantee that you won't die. This is the promise that I, Black Sky Demon, will give you." Ning Ling's heart shrank. Her firm will suffered a powerful blow at this time. She looked down at Qin Yu and saw that his expression was as calm as before, without the least bit of abnormality. She relaxed a bit, but also felt a bit of awe. "Qin," Yu coldly sneered. "It is common for demonic path cultivators to break their promises. If I really believed you, then I might as well commit suicide right now so that I don't fall into your hands and suffer more torture." He stood up. "Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, he is deliberately stalling for time. More and more monster beasts are gathering under the beast-dominating art. We need to break out as soon as possible." Qin Yu hugged her. "Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, I apologize for offending you." His feet fell down. Magic power rumbled within him, and the two of them shot through the air like arrows. Ning Ling blushed red. She suppressed the tumbling emotions in her heart and lifted her hand. Several beams of golden light shot out, causing a massive portion of the mountain forest to fall into a sea of golden flames. The golden light contained an indescribable majesty. Even the monster beasts that were completely controlled by the beast-dominating art instinctively moved forwards in awe, their black eyes revealing a struggling look. Behind them, Black Sky Demon spat out a mouthful of blood. He reared his head back and roared, "Brat, I will burn your bones to ashes." Qin Yu's swift and decisive actions had ruined his plans. The resistance of the monster beast's wills had caused him to suffer an even greater backlash. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. How could he not hate Qin Yu to the bone? Junior Apprentice, Brother Qin Yu, the flying monster beasts have risen higher and I can attack them. With these eagles acting as eyes and ears, we will never be able to escape. Ning Ling revealed an anxious expression. The walking beasts were frightened by the aura of the golden light and didn't dare to approach. But even so, once their strength was exhausted, it would be difficult for them to escape death. Qin Yu didn't speak. Every step he took left a deep footprint in the ground, pushing the two of them forwards at an extreme speed. His sharp eyes swept around, searching for a chance to escape. Although the situation was dangerous, he still maintained his calm. Panicking was always useless. Suddenly, the sound of trickling water filled the air. A steep mountain stream appeared in front of them in an extremely sharp and desolate manner. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He took a deep breath and his leg muscles tightened. Then he straightened his body and shot into the mountain stream. "Ah!" Ning Ling cried out in alarm. She subconsciously held on to him. Their bodies pressed together. The astonishing softness of her caused Qin Yu to stiffen for a brief moment. But soon he couldn't care about this. His eyes fell onto the side of the mountain stream and accurately found a foothold. Shwa! Shwa! The two of them rapidly sank down. Fog gradually appeared, blurring their line of sight. Even so, Qin Yu remained calm and breathtaking. His superb eyesight played an important role, allowing him to quickly find a foothold where he could crazily fall. Putong! The icy cold mountain stream water splashed outwards. But in the blink of an eye, it was smoothed over, and the two of them were completely swallowed up. Roar! Roar! The surrounding walking beast stood on the mountain stream, anxiously pacing back and forth and constantly roaring. The eagles that acted as eyes and ears above also angrily cried out as if they had lost their target. They could only watch helplessly on as the young man and woman fell into the water and were washed away by the current. Black Sky Demon stood on a rock, allowing the cold mountain winds to blow against his robes. His black eyes stared the river below, and he angrily roared, "Do you think you can escape like this? I will find you. I will definitely find you." With a loud cry, the eagles soared higher into the sky. They flew to different locations, blocking off a large area. As long as Qin Yu and Ning Ling appeared, they wouldn't be able to escape their sharp eyes. The walking beasts roared and began to run along the stone cliffs. They entered the mountain stream and then leapt into the water. This chase was far from over. Qin Yu discovered that Ningling was afraid of water. From the moment she leapt into the water, she stubbornly clung onto his body. She used so much strength that it was difficult for him to move. He could only hold her in his arms to avoid being struck by the twisting and changing underground waterways. The river in the mountain stream didn't flow out of the forest, but straight into the belly of the mountain. This greatly surpassed Qin Yu's expectations. He had hoped to borrow the flow of water to escape the forest. If his luck was good, he might be able to run into a powerful cultivation sect and scare away Black Sky Demon. Now he could only resign himself to fate and take things as they came. But soon, Qin Yu felt that something was wrong. Ningling in his arms became increasingly hot. Even in the icy cold underground river water, he could feel a burning sensation. He didn't dare to stay in the water any longer. He took a risk and poked his head out. After several dangers, he managed to avoid the rocks in front of him and finally found empty ground. He held onto Ningling and stepped on a protruding rock. The two of them broke through the water and landed on the ground. He looked around. This should have been an empty hole formed by the river water over the years. Later, because the river had changed direction, it had become empty. Without discovering any danger, Qin Yu placed Ningling on the ground. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale. She had already fallen unconscious. "Senior apprentice, Sister Ning." Qin Yu shouted several times. His heart sank and he took out a pill and carefully placed it in her mouth. But Ningling immediately turned around and vomited, spitting out the pill she had just eaten. She gasped for breath and slowly opened her eyes. "I overused myself. This chapter is not yet finished. Please turn the page. I suffered a backlash from using my bloodline strength and will need to recuperate and recover. Any external force that tries to interfere will be rejected." Just a few words, and she was already dripping with sweat. It was clear that she was extremely weak. Just as Qin Yu was about to say something, his complexion changed. He bent down and carried Ningling on his back. He used a torn robe to tie her up and said, "Senior apprentice, Sister Ning, hold on to me." The roars of monster beasts echoed out from the underground river. Ningling bit her lips. "Qin Yu, go by yourself. If you bring me along, you won't be able to escape." Qin Yu straightened himself. After several breaths of silence, he said, "I've thought about it." As he fell, he stepped forwards and leapt into the underground river. The river water instantly submerged the two of them. Ningling could feel his broad and warm back and his strong heartbeat. She subconsciously held on to him. She had thought about it, and yet she still chose to stay behind. How could she not know the weight behind this? At this moment, the softest part of Ningling's heart was struck and her mood surged. Now that Black Sky Demon no longer needed to rush around. He displayed the might of the Black Sky Beast Dominion art to the limit. More monster beasts rushed into the underground river, searching for Ningling and Qin Yu's whereabouts. If it weren't for the erosion of the water and the countless holes that appeared in the ground, the two of them would have already been surrounded by monster beasts. But even though they relied on the complex terrain to escape for 3 days, Qin Yu still reached the end of his rope. There was a deep wound on his chest that tore through his flesh and blood. As it soaked in the water, it turned white and twisted outwards, giving him a horrifying appearance. This was a monster fish that had caught him off guard. It had left a deep impression on Qin Yu. If it weren't for his quick reactions, his entire chest would have been torn apart by its sharp fangs. Although the monster fish's head had been smashed apart in the end, the smell of blood from Qin Yu's wound had become the best target. If he was given some time, he could use the medicinal efficacy to repair his wound. But he simply didn't have time to catch his breath. He could only continue running for his life. Ningling was still tied to his back. As she listened to Qin Yu's heavy breathing, tears began to fall down her cheeks. "Qin Yu, go." Qin Yu sighed. "If I had escaped by myself 3 days ago, I might have had a chance to live. But now it's too late." Since that's the case, I can only grit my teeth and persist. If I give up halfway, wouldn't my desperate efforts be meaningless? Ningling asked, Aren't you afraid of death? Qin Yu swallowed several pills and chewed on them. I'm afraid. There are countless heroes in this world. But who says they don't fear death? That is absolutely a lie. I am just a nobody, so of course I fear death. But even if I die, I should at least die with some value. For better or worse, I had a demonic path golden core chasing after my ass for 3 days. If others were to find out about this in the future, they would surely sigh in amazement. This joke wasn't funny at all, so Ningling didn't laugh. She quietly said, Do you regret it? Qin Yu shook his head. He prepared to stand up. Senior Apprentice Sister Ning, let's not discuss meaningless things. Save your strength and restore yourself. Perhaps our chance of survival will depend on you. These words were impolite, but Ningling wasn't angered. Qin Yu, I don't want to run anymore. She looked at the frozen figure in front of her. So, there is no need for you to suppress your injuries any longer. Since we can't escape, we might as well die together. Qin Yu slumped to the ground and began to vomit out great mouthfuls of blood. The dark color of the blood was mixed with clots of blood. It was so satisfying that it made one wonder whether or not he would simply spit out all the blood in his body. Luckily, he finally stopped. Although his complexion was even uglier than before, he was able to catch his breath for a long time. Then he sighed with emotion. So vomiting blood can also be a happy matter. The two of them were less than a foot away from each other. They could faintly feel the warmth emitting from each other's bodies. This was the only comfort in the dark underground. Even if they died, they would still have a companion on the road to the Yellow Springs. Ningling patted Qin Yu. Can you still move? I don't want to die here. Remember that crack that leads to the surface. Let's go bask in the sun. Qin Yu nodded. He struggled to stand up and tightly tied her to his back. All right, let's bask in the sun and die. Chapter 29. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. The crack in the ground wasn't wide. Qin Yu's hands and feet were just barely able to support himself. Normally, climbing up would be simple, but at this time every step was incomparably difficult. He gasped for breath like a bellows, and a burning pain burned in his chest, causing his field of vision to darken. Ningling stuck close to him, as if she didn't feel that the two of them could fall down at any moment and fall to their deaths. Her expression was unprecedentedly tranquil. It was as if after facing death, the taut strings in her heart had suddenly relaxed, revealing the true side of her heart. Qin Yu finally climbed out of the crack. He fell backwards, allowing the two of them to fall to the ground. This was a cave, and there was a round hole in the ceiling. Sunlight poured in, sprinkling down on the two of them. After several heavy gasps for breath, Qin Yu untied the rags on his body and struggled to sit down. He took out several pills and swallowed them. During this escape, he had relied on a steady stream of pills to last until today. But now, even the effects of pills couldn't restore his weary and wounded body to its peak. This was only his last struggle against his instincts that he didn't want to succumb to his fate. The person behind him seemed to hesitate for a moment. She gently leaned against his back. Is there no alchemy grandmaster in East Stream Town? Qin Yu was silent. Even if you don't say it, I already know that the so-called grandmaster is you. Otherwise, would all those top-grade pills you ate along the way have fallen from the heavens? Don't say some nonsense like it was bestowed upon you by a grandmaster. Even you wouldn't believe it. Ningling chuckled. She shook her head. Who would have thought that everything that happened in East Stream Town was a self-directed and self-acted play? Even the cultivators of the demonic path suffered a great loss under your hands. It's hard not to admire you. Her voice paused for a moment. Ningling's face was filled with guilt. I'm really sorry. For you to have such amazing alchemy skills at the Foundation establishment realm, You should have a great future ahead of you. But because of me, you ended up in this situation today. Chinyu, be honest with me. On the day I entered East Dreamtown, did you see anything? We will die soon, so don't leave any regrets for yourself. Even if you admit it, I will still forgive you. Consider it a little compensation. Chinyu stiffened. He forced a smile and said, "That was an accident." Ningling's eyes widened. She mumbled, "You really did see it." Her complexion suddenly turned angry. She bit down on his back. "You said you would forgive me." Ningling blushed red and loosened her lips. "Before I forgive you, it doesn't stop me from biting you, you pervert." Without giving Chinyu a chance to refute her, she gently smiled and exhaled. "I suddenly feel much better, although the price you paid for your perverted actions was a bit too high. Chinyu, in truth, I think that dying like this isn't a bad result for me." Her voice gradually became inaudible. She fell into a deep sleep, not planning to open her eyes again to look at the bright and dazzling sunlight. In the eyes of others, Ningling was a proud daughter of heaven, but deep in her heart, she hid a hidden pain that no one else knew about. At this time, her final words left Qin Yu's heart shaking. He suddenly felt that he should do something instead of passively waiting for death here. After several breaths of time, Qin Yu turned and placed Ningling on the ground. He looked at her and sighed. One person living is always better than two people dying together. Consider this as me owing you in my past life. His hand flashed with light, and he took out a black robe and covered Ningling with it. The black robe isolated his aura. This was all he could do. As for whether or not he could survive, that would depend on the will of the heavens. Qin Yu turned and walked out of the cave. The dazzling sunlight gradually submerged his figure, as if he were being pulled into another world. He took a deep breath of the fresh mountain air. After determining his direction, he stepped forwards and howled into the depths of the mountain forest. Soon, the cries of eagles echoed in the skies above. Their sharp eyes had already locked onto Qin Yu's figure. Qin Yu continued forwards, ignoring them. His only thought was to delay Black Sky Demon as much as possible so that Ningling could live. He didn't know whether or not he was stupid to do this. But this chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Which youth didn't have hot blood in their chests? To die for a woman who liked him a little, and he also liked a little. Perhaps it was wrong, but he would leave behind any regrets in his life. Junior! Black Sky Demon's thunderous roar echoed out. He had clearly recovered a great deal in these past 3 days. His eyes flashed with anger before turning into deep ridicule. You actually lured me to attack you alone? Are you trying to fight for a chance of survival for a girl from the Ning family? I never thought you would be such a passionate person. But do you have the qualifications to do so? I will kill you first, and then dig 3 feet into the ground to find her. I will send you to accompany her on the road to the Yellow Springs. Bang! Magic power rumbled. Without a single word, Qin Yu stormed forwards. Black Sky Demon's face darkened. He was enraged at being ignored. In addition to the grievances he had suffered before, his anger soared to the heavens. Where do you think you're going? Whoosh! His golden core cultivation galvanized. Like a fierce tiger, he chased after Qin Yu. Strong winds blew against his face. Qin Yu felt as if his body was being torn apart, making it nearly impossible for him to breathe. He knew that death was approaching, but his heart was abnormally calm. It was in this tranquility that Qin Yu realized a creepy feeling coming from in front of him. There was danger, but as his thoughts raced, Qin Yu didn't stop. Instead, he stimulated the last of his strength and hurtled towards the source of this danger. He arrived in front of a cliff and leapt up. As he soared into the air, his consciousness began to blur. He could only faintly see a deep pool below, so dark that he couldn't see the bottom. Prepare to die. Black Sky Demon diabolically grinned. A terrifying aura rapidly approached. But in the next moment, a voice filled with anger rang out. Just what is this place? Pa! As the wave soared into the air, Qin Yu's field of vision darkened and he fell unconscious, as if he had fallen into an incomparably long dream. Qin Yu felt as if a towering mountain was pressing down on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe. The pain from the lack of oxygen nearly drove him crazy, but no matter how much he struggled, he couldn't break free. Just as Qin Yu thought that he would die in this dream, a breath of precious air suddenly rushed into his chest from the outside. His nearly collapsed nerves were like withered seedlings greedily sucking in the cool water beneath the blazing sun, coming back to life. Whew! There was a loud gasp in the darkness. Qin Yu fiercely sat up and wiped away the blood that had stuck to his nose and mouth. Only then did he truly regain the freedom to breathe. As he thought about how he had nearly suffocated himself to death because of the blood in his nose, the joy of surviving a calamity quickly turned into a deep fear. But how am I still alive? A random thought popped up in Qin Yu's mind. His expression immediately became alert. But just as he moved, there wasn't a single part of his body that didn't hurt. With a stuffy cough, he fell to the ground, gasping for breath. It seemed that there weren't any dangers in this place for the time being. Otherwise, he would have already been dismembered and wouldn't have been able to stay here for so long. He took out some pills and took out several leaves from his storage bag. He chewed them up and swallowed them down. As he thought about the decision he had made not too long ago, he couldn't allow himself to fall unconscious again. He couldn't help but bitterly smile and fall into a deep sleep. After an unknown period of time, Qin Yu awoke from the darkness once more. His body crackled with every movement. Although it was still sore, it was much better than before. In particular, the burning sensation in his organs had weakened by a great deal. This should be the effect of the snake orchid he ate. It was truly worthy of being a spirit grass that had grown in this underground medicine garden for hundreds of years. The effects were truly amazing. He had truly survived. Qin Yu relaxed a little. He opened his eyes and his body stiffened. Although it was incomparably dark, with his amazing eyesight, he was able to barely see his surroundings. More than 10 meters away, a strange fish was lying on the ground. Its palm-sized eyes were bulging and bloodshot, and there was something that looked like a human leg hanging from its fangs under its broken lips. This strange fish was 5 or 6 meters long. Compared to the fish monster that had sneak-attacked Qin Yu, it could only be considered a grandchild. From this, one could see just how fierce it was. The question was, who had killed it? This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Was it the owner of the human leg in the mouth of the strange fish? Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Black Sky Demon hated him to the bone and had no reason to let him go. Thus, he was surprised that he was still alive. It wasn't that Black Sky Demon didn't want to kill him, but that he didn't have the chance. With his mind agitated, strength gushed out from his body. Qin Yu stood up, but he didn't act impulsively. He cautiously walked towards the strange fish, but soon he discovered that he had been worrying too much. This was because the strange fish's mouth was slightly bulging. When he opened its broken lips, he could see Black Sky Demon's body that had been stabbed by the strange fangs. However, this old demon was truly fierce. Before he died, he had shattered the strange fish's upper jaw, and now his entire arm was still stuck inside. He had perished together. After Qin Yu recovered from his shock, he began to laugh. His laughter echoed through the cave. As he saw this, he could almost guess what had happened. Before he fell unconscious, the dangerous aura he had felt should have come from this strange fish. Black Sky Demon had chased after him, wanting to kill him. But somehow, the two of them had died together, allowing him to survive. Otherwise, no matter who won, his fate wouldn't have been too beautiful. After experiencing this, Qin Yu was surprised by his own luck. Could he really be one of those legendary individuals that received the destiny of the heavens and earth and had an invisible protection? As this thought appeared, he suppressed it. If he really had a great destiny, shouldn't he be able to pick up magic tools as he walked and meet famous teachers as soon as he went out? His path would be smooth, and he would finally be able to laugh proudly in all directions. Compared to him, this was completely different. He shouldn't think too highly of himself. Who cared about his dogshit luck? It was good enough that he had survived. Moreover, Black Sky Demon had died here, and his Black Sky beast-dominating art had also lost its effect. Ning Ling should be safe now. Thinking of this, Qin Yu was in a much better mood. He diabolically grinned twice. Although he had inexplicably become the fisherman that reaped the benefits, this didn't stop him from making a massive fortune. Black Sky Demon and that strange fish that could kill him wouldn't end up like Li Yunma's storage bag, right? He took out a short sword. A cold light seemed to cut through the darkness. This was a gift that a talented youth had given to him at East Streamtown when he had failed to visit a grandmaster. Although it was only an ordinary magic tool, it should still be sharp enough. Puff! The short sword cut open a long wound along the fish's lips, revealing the hard gums below. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He didn't care about the blood that splashed out. He began to dismember the corpse. Of course, he wasn't a freak. Black Sky Demon was still in the shape of a hedgehog. If he wanted to pull him out, he would first have to pull out the fangs of the strange fish. If he didn't have the strength to open the fish's mouth, he could only pull out the fangs. Moreover, this strange fish was likely a Golden Core realm fish monster. Its fangs were bound to be precious and could even be used as raw materials to refine magic tools. There was no reason for him to miss this opportunity. Pala! When the last fangs fell to the ground. Even though Qin Yu had a sharp weapon in his hand and this strange fish was only a corpse, he was still panting for breath. His body was covered in blood, like a butcher's, but his face was still full of smiles. The sharpness and hardness of the fish's fangs were better than he had expected. After counting them, there were 108 of them. If he could refine them into a set of flying swords and control them with his divine sense, the scene would be so beautiful that he could drool over them. This was a good thing. He had to put it away well. Although controlling objects with divine sense was a Golden Core realm technique, his divine sense far surpassed that of ordinary Foundation establishment cultivators. Perhaps there would come a day when he could use it. Qin Yu took several deep breaths and rested for a moment. Then he reached into the soft fish mouth and pulled out Black Sky Demon's corpse. This famous and powerful demonic path powerhouse was in a miserable state right now. Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to sigh. He casually tossed Black Sky Demon to the ground and then stuck his hand into the fish's mouth. Following the bloody hole in Black Sky Demon's arm, he drilled his entire arm in. Suddenly, his eyes brightened and he pulled out his hand. He shook off the white brain matter and smiled at a bead in his hand. This bead was the size of a pebble, and there was a small version of the strange fish inside. It roared at Qin Yu again and again, as if it were questioning why he had done such a cruel thing to its corpse. Chapter 30. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? To provide you with wonderful novels to read. The inner core was indeed a Golden Core realm fish monster. This was a wonderful treasure. It could be refined into the eye of a great array formation and could also be used to refine pills and other treasures. To a monster cultivator, it was a great supplement. It was simply an all-round treasure. As for the shrunken fish's hostility, Qin Yu didn't care at all. As long as he didn't try to refine the inner core, then the strange fish's soul essence wouldn't be able to do anything to him. If it dared to rush out of the inner core, then Qin Yu wouldn't even need to do anything. It would vanish in the blink of an eye. Qin Yu put away the strange fish's contribution points with satisfaction. Then his eyes fell on Black Sky Demon. With such a brilliant example in front of him, a dignified, demonic path Golden Core couldn't lower his status too much. He took out his storage bag and probed it with his divine sense. Then Qin Yu took a deep breath and sighed from the depths of his heart. What a good person! Compared to Li Yunma's storage bag, the contrast between the two was so great that it made one want to cry. Indeed, even a dead person's wealth depended on luck. Black Sky Demon's storage bag was over 100 feet wide. There were over 2,000 spirit stones inside, nearly piled up into a small mountain. Qin Yu didn't have much use for spirit stones, so he didn't mention them. But that was because he was a freak who relied on swallowing pills to cultivate. He didn't need to be like other cultivators, bitterly accumulating spirit stones and then carefully absorbing the spiritual strength within. However, spirit stones were a hard currency for cultivators. Moreover, they were extremely useful when making breakthroughs in cultivation, so the more the better. Moreover, there was the illustrious black sky beast-dominating art. However, Qin Yu only needed to flip through this thick book made from some unknown leather to determine that Black Sky Demon was absolutely trying to flatter himself. Even just casually flipping through it, he could see that this ancient book contained a vast amount of information. It was simply as vast as the clouds. There was no need for it to be called Black Sky Demon. What he could confirm was that this was an extremely ancient beast dominating art. This was because many monster beasts had already gone extinct. Black Sky Demon had only perceived a few hairs from this book to create the illustrious reputation of the Black Sky beast dominating art. From this, it could be seen how precious this beast dominating art was. It could absolutely benefit someone for a lifetime. In addition, there was also a small black flag the size of a palm. Without a doubt, it was a magic tool of quality, the soul-burying flag. It could bury the soul of a powerful enemy. When released in battle, the soul would have 30% of its strength when it was alive. Although it could only bury the soul of a golden core at most and bury a new soul, it would dissipate the previous soul and only retain 30% of its strength. Unfortunately, Black Sky Demon had died, and the soul burying he had sealed within had dissipated with him. Otherwise, he would have been able to test out the might of soul burying. As he dripped a drop of blood on it, he sighed that demonic path magic tools were so good. But at the same time, he also felt as if he had missed something. Lin Ming suddenly slapped his head and cursed at this damned bastard. He immediately activated the soul-burying flag, and a black fog shot out, covering Black Sky Demon's corpse. Several breaths of time later, just as Qin Yu was feeling disappointed, the black fog suddenly tumbled, and a completely black Sky Demon appeared in front of him. Qin Yu was excited. He tried to control Black Sky Demon. He lifted a hand and shot out demonic energy. With a loud explosion, massive rocks fell down. Qin Yu was puzzled. At this time, Black Sky Demon only had an early golden core cultivation. It didn't match his 6th level golden core strength. Could it be that he had died too long ago and had also suffered severe wounds before he died? What Qin Yu didn't know was that besides these two reasons, the most important reason was that he only had a 4th level foundation establishment cultivation. If it weren't for the remnant energy of the soul-burying flag, then let alone summoning Black Sky Demon, he would have already suffered a backlash from the demonic treasure. After rubbing it for a long time, Qin Yu recalled Black Sky Demon. As he felt his life-saving methods rise, he began to praise Black Sky Demon even more. Not only had Black Sky Demon contributed his own storage bag that could be called a small treasure, but he had even offered his own soul. If there was a selection of the top 10 demonic cultivators of the year, Black Sky Demon truly deserved his title. 2,000 spirit stones, the Black Sky beast dominating art, and the soul-burying flag were in front of him. As for the rest, Qin Yu didn't care too much about them. But a golden core collection was bound to be top quality. For instance, this bamboo dragonfly that could be passed off as a genuine one. Every time he poured magic power into it, it could continue to operate for a month. It was the best choice for surveillance and investigation. There was also a small bag of a dozen or so treasures. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. This tightly sealed seed was only the size of a sesame seed, but its surface was covered with golden stars. It was clear it wasn't ordinary. Finally, what appeared in front of Qin Yu were several black jade slips. After looking through them, there were all cultivation methods for sinister demonic arts. These were things that only demonic cultivators could practice. No matter how powerful they were, they could only look on with envy. Although Qin Yu had always been making money from demonic cultivators, and he also felt that there was some destiny between him and the demonic path, he didn't have any thoughts of switching to the demonic path. Demonic cultivators rose quickly in the early stages, but lacked strength in the later stages. Moreover, their cultivation methods often went against the will of the heavens and would often not have a good ending. For instance, the heavenly tribulation when one reached golden core or nascent soul was like the gates of hell to a demonic cultivator. The final jade slip. The tentacles were ordinary, and the texture was far inferior to the previous ones. Qin Yu only casually swept through it with his divine sense in order to not miss any opportunities. But soon, his complexion became dignified. After a long time, Qin Yu laid down the jade slip. He scratched his head and muttered, "How come I feel that the things recorded inside seem so familiar?" He reached into his chest and took out 2 storage bags. He placed the gold and silver one to the side and took out the one that Li Yunma had contributed. With a thought, 30 black jade boxes appeared on the ground. 36 kinds, the same amount. Demon spirit beard. Slippery to the touch and smells fishy. Jade demon bone. The bone of a nascent soul demonic cultivator. It requires all the demonic essence of the body to be condensed in one place, and only after years of precipitation can one form it. Ancient mule shell. It is born in the deep sea and is pitch black. It never sees the light of day for its entire life, and it contains the strongest een and coldest strength. As he whispered to himself, Qin Yu's eyes became increasingly bright. Because of his excitement, a faint blush appeared on his face. The more he compared it, the more certain he was that the sacrificial items recorded in the jade slip to cultivate the demon body were the 36 jade boxes in Li Yunma's storage bag. Qin Yu finally understood why Li Yunma had hesitated and distressed when he handed over the storage bag. This old demon must have spent countless years in order to cultivate the demon body in order to gather these 36 sacrificial items. It had to be known that many of these items, such as the jade demon bone or the ancient mule shell, were extremely rare in the world. But in the end, they had been taken away by Qin Yu. Thinking about it, his mood at the time must have been extremely sad. In fact, Li Yunma's heart was absolutely pained. These 36 sacrificial items were gathered by his lineage of demonic cultivators over several hundred years. He was only missing a single drop of qualified demon blood before he could smoothly cultivate the demon body. But, comparatively speaking, the difficulty of gathering these 36 sacrificial items wasn't anything at all compared to finding qualified demon blood. When Li Yunma reached Golden Core, he had inherited these jade boxes. But even after 300 years, he still hadn't found any information related to demon blood. It was nearly impossible for such pure and powerful demon blood to appear in the mortal world. Perhaps it only existed in the distant land of immortals and demons. But with his talent, he would never have the chance to enter the land of immortals and demons. So when Qin Yu asked for them, Li Yunma hesitated for a moment before handing them over. This was because he was sure that no matter who obtained these 36 jade boxes, they would only be able to stare at them helplessly. He only considered this as throwing away a heavy burden on his body. Of course, his hatred towards Qin Yu wouldn't lessen because of this. Qin Yu didn't know any of this. He only discovered that he had obtained a great harvest, and his entire mind was immersed in excitement. The demon body was the highest body cultivation method of the demonic path. After achieving it, one's mortal body would become as hard as iron and stone. With the support of 10,000 demons, one would be able to cultivate it to the peak boundary and become immortal. Moreover, what was most important was that cultivating the demon body didn't require demonic energy. Moreover, after cultivating it, it would be extremely difficult for others to discover it. Qin Yu felt that this was simply tailor-made for him. He had already tasted the benefits of a formidable mortal body far too many times. He had already decided that he would never return from the road of body cultivation. If he were to encounter such a top body cultivation method, then he would be struck by lightning. Moreover, he was only missing a single drop of qualified demon blood from cultivating the demon body. It was as if he only needed to stretch out his hand and he would be able to obtain it. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Above his head, he placed the shining golden sign of the demon body cultivator. He had wrongly accused Li Yunma. He was also a good comrade. Qin Yu secretly warned himself that in the future he had to look at people from a comprehensive perspective. He couldn't wrongly accuse others anymore. Moreover, the demonic cultivators were far too great. Not only did they give him treasures, but they also cooperated with each other. If they gave him treasures, then they gave him everything. They were simply the benchmark of the new era's cultivators. Qin Yu carefully put away the 36 jade boxes and the storage bag. Then he calmed his thoughts. He looked at the withered corpse of Black Sky Demon, as well as the corpse of the strange fish that was dripping with blood. He decided that he would give them a proper burial. But before that, he had to determine where he was. Black Sky Demon had died, and Ningling was safe. But if he didn't return, he feared she would be worried. As he thought of this, Qin Yu's footsteps quickened. He followed the cave. The pitch-black road ahead seemed unfathomably deep, but after walking 7 or 8 meters, he reached the end. Blocking in front of him was an unknown curtain of light. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and threw a piece of stone into it. As the stone passed through the curtain of light, there was a faint rumbling sound. There was only a single entrance to the cave. If he appeared inside, then he must have passed through the curtain of light. In addition, there was also the stone just now, so there shouldn't be any danger. Qin Yu took a deep breath and stepped in. Then, there was nothing beneath his feet. His body stiffened and a cold sweat dripped down his back. At this time, this was what happened from a third party's point of view. In the center of the massive underground black channel, there seemed to be an invisible, imprisoning strength that sucked in all the flowing water. It formed a nearly straight line, roaring as it rushed into the darkness below. On the inner wall of the black channel, there was a dim light 10 feet wide. Compared to the entire channel, it was so small that it could be ignored. Half of Qin Yu's body was sticking out from this light, 1 foot stepping on nothingness. If it weren't for the fact that he was being cautious and his steps were slow so that he could stabilize himself, he feared he would have fallen into the channel. As he looked at the roaring and spinning water, his scalp tingled. Qin Yu rapidly drew back and gasped for breath. In that moment, just now, he felt as if he had just brushed shoulders with death. Forcefully stabilizing his mind, Qin Yu forced himself to think. After a brief moment of confusion, his thoughts gradually became clear. As he thought of the deep pool he saw when he jumped down and the strange fish that died, his complexion became extremely ugly. If he wasn't wrong, then he should be at the bottom of the deep pool. But who the hell knew why there was such a terrifying scene below? As for why he appeared in this cave with the strange fish and Black Sky Demon, he didn't have the mind to care about that. There was only one thought left in his mind. How could he leave this place? In a way, this matter was very simple. As long as he could go against the flow of water, he would eventually be able to drill out of the pool. But the key problem was that there was an unfathomably deep black hole underground, as well as the roaring and spinning water. Both of these caused his heart to tremble. Although he didn't know why they had appeared, he was sure that if he fell in, he would be torn to pieces. Qin Yu soon calmed down. After all, he had experience being trapped in the pill disposal department, and his endurance had increased by a great deal. He frowned and continued to think. He and Black Sky Demon were both outsiders, so the only ones that could live here were the strange fish. Fish needed water, and even Golden Core realm fish monsters were the same. But the only water here was the terrifying spinning columns of water outside. The strange fish could survive in the water. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He had vaguely, grasped the key to this, but he had no idea whether or not he could succeed. After several breaths of time, he grit his teeth, a determined expression on his face. If he didn't try, then there were only two results left for him. He could slowly cultivate to golden core and escape, or he could be trapped here forever. No matter how he looked at it, the latter was far more likely. He had to go all out. Hashtag a new month. I've reached 100,000 words. I'm asking for recommendations and a guaranteed monthly ticket. Chapter 31. Genius in a second. Remember, love, go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Chin Yu quickly returned to the strange fish's corpse. He inwardly apologized for his offense and took out the dagger he used to dismember the fish and began to skin it from its mouth. That's right, he was going to start from the inside and peel off the entire fish skin. This was because it was likely the key to his survival. An hour later, the entire fish skin was peeled off. Chin Yu didn't even have time to catch his breath as he carefully examined it. The fish skin was actually intact, and he was relieved. It hadn't been damaged in the fierce battle with Black Sky Demon at all. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the fish skin's defensive capabilities were. After folding it and placing it in his storage ring, Chin Yu sat down cross-legged and swallowed down several pills, as well as several spirit leaves from the underground medicine garden that could replenish his blood energy. He couldn't afford to waste them, because even if it was in his storage bag, the fish skin couldn't be stored for too long. He had to restore his injuries as soon as possible. For days later, Chin Yu stood up. His bones crackled. Although he hadn't fully recovered, the fish skin he had just examined wasn't looking too optimistic. He couldn't continue. He arrived at the cave entrance and took out the fish skin. He drilled into it, tightly wrapping himself up without revealing anything. Then he took a deep breath and shot out like a cannonball. In the next moment, he felt as if he had been struck by a hammer. His vision darkened and his ears buzzed. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he felt as if countless fists were pounding into every inch of his body, nearly causing it to collapse. With a stuffy cough, Chin Yu took out the strange fish's inner core. A faint layer of light was released from the darkness. The shrunken strange fish phantom roared again and again, and its fish skin began to gradually swell up. Although there were still violent vibrations that made Chin Yu dizzy, he no longer felt as if he would die at any moment. His heart calmed a little, but as time passed, his heart became increasingly cold. This was because at this time, no matter how much he struggled, he couldn't resist the flow of water around him. He could only rely on the protection of the strange fish's inner core and skin to sink deep underground. Feeling the increasingly strong impact, Chin Yu revealed a helpless expression. He thought that he had escaped from death and had made a great fortune, but he never imagined that it would be a great joke. Thump! Thump! The low thumping sound became increasingly heavy. Chin Yu's organs resonated with it, causing the wounds that hadn't healed to split open once more. Blood began to flow out from his head. Chin Yu closed his eyes, waiting for the final moment to arrive. Perhaps he really would die. He couldn't help but ask himself, did he really not regret it? The results showed that he didn't have the slightest thought of betraying the world. Forget it. At least one can continue to live. But many years later, will she still remember me? As this thought raced through Chin Yu's mind, the fish skin emitted a mournful tearing sound. A terrifying impact arrived, as if he had been struck by a falling mountain. But this impact passed in an instant. Before Chin Yu's chest collapsed, the terrifying strength vanished without a trace, as if it had never appeared at all. As his feet landed on the ground, Chin Yu looked up at the terrifying column of water that had smashed into his head and then scattered in all directions. He spat out a mouthful of blood and cursed out loud. What AF asterisk King Dogs hit luck? Blood. The blood light. Even though it was dim, it still contained in it. The light. 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 The light. The light was light was light. Space. Light. The light. light. The stone was like a crouching bull, an ancient aura lingering around it. Qin Yu's intuition told him that all of the strange things happening in the deep pool originated from this blue stone. As he bathed in the blood-red light, he felt as if he were being spied on, as if some unknown existence was looking down at him from above, its expression indifferent. He froze. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. He stood where he was, not daring to move. But at this time, there was a popping sound in his chest as Li Yunma's storage bag was destroyed without warning. 36 jade boxes burst through his clothes and fell to the ground. Pata! Pata! 36 jade boxes were opened at the same time, and the items stored inside floated up by themselves. They flew to the surroundings of the crouching bull bluestone and circled around it slowly. Blood veins that looked like meridians appeared on the bluestone, quickly lighting up and extinguishing. Finally, all the blood color gathered on top of the green ox's head. Under Qin Yu's shocked gaze, a bead of dark red blood overflowed from the ox's head. A wild howl exploded in the depths of Qin Yu's soul, and a towering image appeared in his mind. A demon 100,000 feet high, its feet stepping on the earth and its head reaching into the heavens. Its roar caused mountains to collapse and rivers to break apart. Qin Yu's pupils suddenly dilated. In the blink of an eye, all of the white in his eyes was expelled. His eyes became the same as black sky demons, completely black. But at this time his black was incomparably deep and rich, like the deepest eternal darkness in the world, able to submerge and swallow all. His consciousness blurred. He instinctively controlled his body, allowing him to step forwards. The floating items scattered, allowing him to swallow the bead of blood that leaked out from the bluestone. Ah! Qin Yu fiercely looked up. He opened his mouth and screamed out loud. His back was bent so far that one feared it would snap. Blue veins popped up, wriggling like worms. His flesh and blood turned red, and blood seeped out from his pores. Qin Yu felt as if his body had caught fire. A burning pain penetrated into his soul. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't release even a tiny bit of it. At this time, the 36 floating items trembled and turned to powder, as if they had been weathered for tens of millions of years. The powder stuck to Qin Yu's body and fused into his body. A cool and refreshing feeling instantly rose from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, rescuing Qin Yu from that terrifying burning sensation. But before he could even breathe a sigh of relief, this cool and refreshing feeling turned into boiling oil that had been poured over the flames. Qin Yu's pitiful screams came to an abrupt end. He was no longer able to speak. Black, demonic flames shot out from every orifice of his head, and his body began to crack like the bottom of a dry river. There was a reason why the demon body was known as the highest body transformation method of the demonic path. Even if one gathered all of the items needed to cultivate it, starting to cultivate it was no different from stepping into the gates of hell. The failure rate was shockingly high. Unfortunately, although the demon body cultivation method that Qin Yu obtained was complete, it didn't record all of this. Of course, even if it did, the current situation wouldn't allow him to refuse. Qin Yu's talent was ordinary, and he didn't have a powerful bloodline. Although his mortal body was much stronger than other cultivators, he was still far from reaching the threshold of cultivating the demon body. In other words, before long his blood would be burned away by the demonic flames, and he would turn into a pile of charcoal. After the blue ox overflowed with demonic blood, it became extremely ordinary. But as the demonic flames shot out from Qin Yu's head, it suddenly flew up and landed on top of Qin Yu's head. It was like a million mountains were pressing down on him. The demonic flames dimmed, nearly extinguished. Ah! Qin Yu's soul seemed to hear an angry roar, and he immediately flew up. When he opened his eyes once more, he discovered that he had crossed through time and space and had arrived at an ancient great war. In front of him was still the demonic phantom that stood tall and mighty, its roar causing mountains to crack and seas to flow backwards. But at this time, a finger appeared in the scene. It was the size of a normal person and came from above the highest heavens. Endless spiritual strength poured into it, stirring up the winds and causing the winds to stir. The demonic phantom seemed to feel a threat. It roared, and its demonic arms tore through the clouds. Its fist collided with the finger, and the demonic phantom's body shook. Its feet sank into the earth up to its knees. Soon after, a second finger fell down. This finger didn't absorb spiritual strength and instead remained the size of a normal person. But as it appeared, countless blurry figures appeared in the world. Some were large, some were small, some were complete, some were incomplete, but every one of them emitted a heaven-shaking aura. These figures stepped forwards, turning into motes of light that fused into the finger. Gradually, it began to emit a dazzling light. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Bang! With a heaven-shaking explosion, the second finger struck the demonic phantom. It roared again and again as half of its body was smashed into ground. Perhaps because it felt that it wasn't a match, a demonic cloud rose up and the demonic phantom revealed its true form. It was a demonic bull that was as large as a mountain. Its 4 hooves pushed outwards, wanting to break free from the earth. But at this time, a third finger fell down from the heavens. This finger instantly suppressed the might of the previous 2 fingers. In fact, it was more accurate to say that the 2 sides weren't even on the same level. This was because this third finger galvanized the power of the world and then activated the killing of the world. The demonic bull howled in unwillingness, and its body rapidly shrank. Finally, it was smashed deep into the earth by this finger, leaving behind a bottomless hole. Then, for thousands of miles, the earth trembled. Dirt rose up into mountains, and the earth tore apart into valleys. Winds and clouds gathered, and thunder rumbled. Torrential rain poured down, and endless streams of water gathered from all directions, crashing into the hole. Qin Yu's eyes widened as he looked at this scene. His mind violently shook. Without a doubt, this battle he saw was the origin of the terrifying water column and the blue stone at the bottom of the pool. It was because of this that the blue stone was able to spill demon blood and allow him to open the demon body cultivation without any preparations. His soul rapidly sank down, returning to his body. It was like that heaven-shaking battle just now had been nothing but an illusion, but it was destined to be real. Qin Yu opened his eyes. The dried blood scabs on his eyelids began to fall off. With a thought, the sounds of his muscles and bones began to ring out, becoming louder and louder as they gathered together. It was like the beating of a great drum, like a surging river. All of the blood on his body was shaken off. His robes had long since been soaked in blood. Now that his skin was torn apart, it revealed a fresh white skin that was covered with a faint jade-like halo. But beneath this seemingly delicate surface, there was actually a strength 10 times that of a wild beast. He could casually tear apart tigers and leopards. The demon body that was known to be cultivated to the point where 100 cultivators would die 1,000 times over had actually succeeded in such a muddled manner. As he felt the powerful strength rushing through every inch of his flesh and blood, what appeared deep in his mind was those 3 fingers that came from the heavens. This image was so clear that it seemed to take root in the deepest parts of his soul, impossible to erase. Blue expanse, blue spirit, blue sea. Qin Yu whispered to himself. He didn't know why he knew the names of these 3 fingers, but he did know them, and he even had a feeling that he could use them. His body moved with his mind. He lifted a finger, and strong winds rose up in the void. Magic power poured out like a broken dam, but in the next moment it stopped. Qin Yu's complexion paled, a look of lingering fear on his face. He realized that he hadn't used the strength of these 3 fingers yet. Otherwise, just the magic power required would have drained him dry. The blue boulder that had fallen to the side flashed as the strong winds appeared. As if it had completed its final mission, it quietly shattered. In the next moment, the terrifying current that had lost all resistance smashed Qin Yu into the ground. Deep mountains, old forests, waterfalls, deep pools. A fat wild boar was lying not too far away, drinking water. It would occasionally glance over, curious as to why there wasn't any aura that frightened boars. As it was hesitating about whether or not it should run over and drink a few mouthfuls of the icy cold water, a black shadow rapidly emerged from the pool. Bang! The pool water exploded. Qin Yu landed on the ground and sucked in a deep breath of mountain air. He couldn't help but laugh into the heavens. A strange fluctuation instantly spread out from his body. The skies turned black and motes of stars began to appear. For 1,000 miles, from dawn to night, yin and yang had been reversed. Bang! A black pillar of demonic power fell down from the darkness, shining down on Qin Yu's body. His laughter came to an abrupt stop and his lips twitched. This disturbance was a bit too great. He had to hurry up and run away. He didn't need to be a genius to know that this place would soon be filled with cultivators slaying demons and defending the righteous path. Chapter 32. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Ning Ling hugged her knees as she leaned against the stone wall. The black robes on her body seemed to contain his scent. Bright sunlight poured down, wrapping around her. But Ning Ling didn't feel the least bit of warmth. Instead, a cold chill rose up from the depths of her heart, causing her face to pale. She had already woken up for 5 days, and Qin Yu still hadn't returned. He hadn't said anything, and only left behind this black robe. It was because of this that Ning Ling's heart tightened, aching with pain. Because she knew what this meant. With this black robe, with so many pills, and with the intelligence and caution he had revealed as he fled, as long as Qin Yu abandoned her, there was a high chance he could escape unscathed. But in the end, he didn't leave. He left her with the hope of survival and allowed himself to be swallowed up by the darkness alone. Ning Ling stared at the cave entrance, as if she could see his back as he left. She could no longer suppress the grief in her heart, and tears fell down like rain. 5 days. With Qin Yu's condition when he left, it was impossible for him to last until now. If he didn't return, then he would never return. In all these years, Ning Ling had never experienced such sorrow. It was like a meteor that cut through the horizon, illuminating the journey of her life and then coming to an abrupt halt in the next moment. But no matter what, Qin Yu had left behind the deepest mark in her heart, one that she would never erase. She wiped away her tears, put on the black robe, and walked out. As she stepped out of the cave, although her eyes were red, her face was filled with unprecedented indifference. This indifference was different from before. It was as if she had completely sealed herself away from the outside. Whoosh! There was the sound of breaking air. A black demonic saber was as fast as lightning, cutting down at her. A cruel and ruthless aura rose up, stirring up wild winds that lifted up her hair and blew her black robe into the cave entrance. Ning Ling reached out a hand to grab it, but didn't catch it. She watched as it fell into the cave, as if she were in a different world from the one she was in. Sorrow gushed out from her eyes. When the demonic saber was 12 feet away, an invisible strength imprisoned it. The demonic saber emitted a shrill cry and then began to disintegrate. Not too far away, there was a horrified cry. A figure shot into the skies, its billowing demonic energy revealing its golden core cultivation. It was even stronger than black sky demons. But such a powerhouse of the demonic path was like a stray dog, panic-stricken and terrified. Shwa! An old man appeared in midair. His eyes were half closed, but when he looked up there would be lightning. He said indifferently, "Since you've come, then stay." With a flick of his sleeves, space seemed to twist a little. The demonic golden core's soaring figure was forcefully pressed to the ground like a fly. With a heaven-shaking explosion, he smashed into the cave and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body began to disintegrate into nothingness. With a single strike, not only had a demonic golden core been killed, but everything on his body had been crushed to powder. Just what sort of strength was this? Ning Ling didn't look at him. She stared at the black-robed figure buried in the rubble, and the sadness in her eyes turned into sorrow. But in the blink of an eye, all of this was buried deep within her heart, leaving behind nothing but endless coldness. It was unknown when the elder had appeared behind her. He cupped his hands and said, "Seventh young mistress, it's time for us to go home." Ning Ling turned around. She took a light breath and said, "Old Cloud, I want there to be no more demonic cultivators within 1,000 miles." Elder Yin frowned. "The dead can't come back to life. Why is Seventh Miss doing this? If this old man really makes a move, I'm afraid it will cause a great commotion." Ning Ling's voice turned cold. "What if I insist?" Old Cloud sighed. Just as he was about to agree, his complexion suddenly changed. He turned and looked towards the distant mountain forest. Above his head, the heavens rapidly darkened. "This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." Stars appeared, followed by a terrifying beam of demonic light that fell down. For 1,000 miles, there was a deathly silence. All living beings within this range felt a sense of panic and fear that came from the depths of their souls. Reverse yin and yang. Demonic pillar descends. Old Cloud's voice was low and gloomy. Every word he spoke seemed to tumble through the air, as if it were as heavy as a mountain. Seventh young mistress, a supreme elder of the demonic path, has arrived. I cannot allow you to mess around any longer. We will leave now. Ning Ling's eyes turned red. She turned and bowed. Qinyu, I promise you that in the future I will personally slay Black Sky Demon and cause the demonic path to bleed red for 1,000 miles. Whoosh! Old Cloud sighed inwardly. He flicked his sleeves and picked up Ning Ling. Then he lifted up a sword and shot into the distance, vanishing from sight. For hours later, Qinyu found his way here. As he stood outside the completely collapsed cave, he was silent. The anticipation, excitement, and joy in his heart gradually turned cold in front of the scene, finally submerging all of his thoughts. After a long time, Qinyu furrowed his eyebrows. How could the ending be like this? After experiencing several life and death situations, he didn't believe that the heavens would give him such a result. Qinyu took a deep breath and began to clean up the rubble on the ground. The strength of the demon body was completely released, and he could casually toss away boulders. But Qinyu wasn't in the mood to experience the strength of his mortal body at this time. He silently sprinkled his sweat, allowing it to wet his robes. Suddenly, Qinyu stiffened. A familiar black color appeared in front of him. He cleaned up the nearby stones and picked up his black robes that were covered in dust. There were several dried bloodstains on it. It was like a sword had pierced through his heart, causing him to nearly stop breathing. After a long period of silence, Qinyu folded the black robes and placed them in his storage bag. Then he turned and walked away. At this time, the 18-year-old youth's back was still straight, but he emitted an endless sorrow that left one's nose sore and their vision hazy. Blinking his eyes, Qinyu gradually sped up. He was like a wild horse, crazily galloping through the forest. When he reached the depths of a mountain valley, he came to a sudden stop and shouted with all his strength. His voice billowed through the valley, as if it were tearing at his heart. Outside the valley, 2 hurrying female cultivators were startled. As the young woman saw Qinyu, she didn't know why, but she felt her heart ache. She said in a soft voice, "Senior apprentice, sister, that person looks so sad." The senior apprentice, sister frowned. There was a world phenomenon just now. There must have been a great demon that appeared. Don't meddle in other people's business and hurry up and leave. Oh, the young woman nodded and flew away with her senior apprentice sister. But she still couldn't help but turn her head and look at Qinyu's back. She thought that if he was so sad, could it be that the one he loved had left? How pitiful! This must be the work of the demonic path. She had heard from her teacher that the demonic path had recently been restless and wanted to invade the Southern Empire. They absolutely could not be allowed to succeed. Otherwise, who knew how many more people would be buried in their hands? From start to finish, Qin Yu never noticed that there were two female cultivators passing by outside the valley. One of them even felt deep sympathy for him. After shouting, he gasped for breath, the knot in his chest finally dissipating a little. He looked up to determine which direction he was heading in, and then turned, heading straight for the Eastern Mountain sect. Perhaps nothing had happened to Ningling, even if the possibility was so small that it was negligible. He didn't want to believe that the woman who had walked into his life, whether he wanted to admit it or not, had left. 5 days later, Qin Yu crossed the North Crossing River. He looked back at the river and thought back to when Ningling had stood on the riverbank. She pointed a finger and earnestly asked him, "Junior apprentice brother, what river is this?" Qin Yu's heart shrank. Just as he was about to continue on his way, his complexion changed. He looked up into the distance and saw 5 figures fleeing in panic. Black demonic energy tumbled behind them. It was 3 demonic cultivators chasing after them. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Before Qin Yu could think too much about it, the fleeing people had already approached. A middle-aged cultivator saw Qin Yu and hurriedly said, "Hurry and run!" Seeing that Qin Yu didn't seem to hear him, he thought he had been scared silly. After a moment of hesitation, he lowered his head and continued to flee with the 4 people around him. A tall, demonic cultivator diabolically grinned. "There's actually someone who isn't afraid of death. Then, I'll take the hot blood from your heart and use it to refine my demonic artifact." He howled as he reached out his hand. His 5 fingernails grew several inches long as he was about to tear open Qin Yu's chest and take out his heart. Qin Yu looked up, the icy coldness in his eyes causing the demonic cultivator's heart to tremble. Before he could respond, a fist instantly enlarged in front of him. Dong! With a dull thud, there was the scalp-numbing sound of bones breaking. The demonic cultivator was sent tumbling backwards. When he fell to the ground, he had turned into a pile of rotten flesh, and it was nearly impossible to make out his human form. The remaining 2 demonic cultivators cried out in alarm and turned to flee. Qin Yu's eyes locked onto one of them. His spirit stab instantly shot out. As this person stiffened, the cold blade held out and cut off a head. At the same time, he thrust out the corpse-sealing nail. A giant hole appeared in the last person's chest, and he fell to the ground dead. In almost the blink of an eye, 3 demonic cultivators had been cut down where they stood. The 5 cultivators that had escaped looked back and their eyes widened, their faces filled with disbelief. But soon, they revealed looks of hesitation. Just now, they had only been concerned with running for their lives. If this person were to take out his anger on them, but they didn't dare to leave like this. They could only brace themselves and greet him. "Greetings, my lord." The 5 of them were all Foundation establishment cultivators. Although Qin Yu's aura was also the same, his domineering triple murder just now had shocked them, so they couldn't call him senior. Qin Yu glanced at the person who had warned them. He lightly said, "What happened? Why would a demonic cultivator dare to openly hunt you down in the Southern Empire?" The middle-aged cultivator relaxed. He hurriedly said, reporting to my lord, "For days ago, the demonic path invaded the Southern Empire on a massive scale. The entire southwest region has fallen into the fires of war, and countless sects have been uprooted. There have been countless deaths and injuries." After a pause, he continued, "My lord, it would be best if you don't continue forwards." Qin Yu's complexion changed. "Do you know what the current situation of the Eastern Mountain sect is?" The middle-aged cultivator groaned inwardly. This, speak. The Eastern Mountain sect was one of the first sects to be attacked by the demonic path. Nearly all of the sect's cultivators perished. The scene was tragic. Qin Yu remained silent. The air was so heavy that it nearly froze over. He didn't have too many feelings towards the Eastern Mountain sect, but as he thought of that familiar place being destroyed in the flames of war, he couldn't help but feel sad. Of course, The most important reason was that the idea he had been deceiving himself had been completely shattered along with this news. As the 5 of them were dripping with sweat and feeling uneasy, Qin Yu waved his hand, his interest waning. "You can all leave." The middle-aged cultivator wanted to say something, but was stopped by his companions. The 5 of them left in a panic. Perhaps right now they only wanted to get as far away from where the demonic path was wreaking havoc. Qin Yu was silent for a moment before continuing forwards. First of all, he was already very close to the Eastern Mountain sect. Even though he had heard news that it had been destroyed, he still wanted to personally confirm it. Secondly, since the Eastern Mountain sect had been destroyed, it was unlikely that there would be any demonic path powerhouses left behind. At most, they would be some small fish that wouldn't pose too much of a threat to him. In his storage bag, there was also a soul-burying flag. Although the sleeping black sky demon only had an early golden core cultivation, he was still more than enough to deal with some situations. Hashtag, 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 seeking collection recommendation, monthly ticket. Chapter 33. Genius 1, second remember if you want to go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Half a day later, Qin Yu arrived at the entrance of the Eastern Mountain sect. The tall jade memorial arch had been smashed to pieces, and the majestic words on it had long since disappeared. Black smoke billowed everywhere, and the entire area was in shambles. The foundation of a sect that had existed for over 1,000 years had been completely destroyed. Qin Yu thought of Lang Tu's grave, but the entire pill disposal department had collapsed. He could only stare at it silently. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to find Ningling. Just as he was about to leave, a mournful cry echoed in his ears. A pheasant with half of its feathers burned off, exposing its butt, flapped its wings, and flew towards him. Gua, gua, gua. For better or worse, Qin Yu understood the chicken's meaning. This was roughly what it meant. This overlord enjoyed endless glory and endless happiness with women. I originally wanted to live in seclusion and not care about the affairs of the world. But who would have thought that a great calamity would descend upon my home and harm my loved ones? This overlord is filled with grief and has decided to leave this place of sorrow with you. In the future, I will definitely take revenge for this blood feud. If you do your best to help this overlord, then once this overlord rises, I will not mistreat you. These words were sonorous and forceful, filled with a domineering aura, but when combined with its current appearance and actions, it was laughable to the extreme. That's right, the only one with such explosive, amusing attributes and who felt so good about themselves was our chicken overlord. Qin Yu lightly said, "You and I can be considered fated. If you are willing, then follow me from now on." The chicken overlord leapt up. It was difficult for it to fly with only half its body covered in feathers. It landed on Qin Yu's shoulder and grabbed him with its claws. Although it was clearly relieved, it still put on a proud and arrogant attitude. Qin Yu didn't bother with it. He took a step forward and flew away. Although he wasn't too worried about his safety, it was always better to be cautious. However, he didn't expect that before he left the entrance, he would run into over a dozen cultivators, several of whom he was familiar with. Tao Jia was pleasantly surprised. "Junior apprentice, Brother Qin Yu. That's right. I heard that you went home to visit your family. It was because of this that you were able to avoid this calamity. Otherwise, I fear." He looked at the devastated entrance of the Eastern Mountain sect, and his eyes turned red. He choked on his words, unable to continue. Several people around him had sad expressions. They should also be disciples of the Eastern Mountain sect. Su Wei glanced at Qin Yu, his dark eyes incomparably empty. There was no longer any of the arrogance and condescension he had before. Thinking about it, the destruction of the Eastern Mountain sect had also thoroughly destroyed his pride. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Greetings, Senior Apprentice, Brother Tao Jia." Tao Jia stopped his grief. "After you left, Senior Apprentice Sister Ning also left. Luckily, that was the case. Otherwise, Senior Apprentice, Sister Ning, wouldn't have been able to escape. He revealed a gratified expression. It was clear that his attitude towards Ning Ling and Qin Yu weren't on the same level. Qin Yu lowered his head and didn't say anything. A cultivator stepped out from the crowd and patted Tao Jie's shoulder. Fellow Taoist Tao, there is no need to feel sad. The entire Eastern Mountain sect fought to the death against the demonic path and caused tremendous damage to them. There is no one who doesn't admire this. Moreover, you and I will soon join the army to fight against the demonic path, so there will be plenty of opportunities for revenge in the future. The eyes of several female cultivators in the crowd brightened. They cupped their hands together towards Qin Yu and said, "Fellow Taoist, since we met here, it is fate that brought us together. How about you come with us so that we can take care of each other? Once you enter the army, you will have a chance to take revenge for your sect." Tao Jie nodded again and again. "Junior Apprentice Brother Qin Yu, you should come with us. This fellow Taoist Zhao Chan is a disciple of the Divine Water Sect, and there is a righteous Cultivator Alliance station not too far away. Once we arrive, we will be completely safe and you can make your own plans." He truly wanted to pull Qin Yu along. Even if he didn't like Qin Yu in the past, he still came from the same sect. After the Eastern Mountain sect was destroyed, this sort of relationship had become even more precious. Su Wei frowned. "This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." Qin Yu calmly looked at Zhao Chan and slowly shook his head. "I don't want to drag you all down. It's better if I travel alone." Seeing Tao Jie's disappointed expression, Qin Yu hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior Apprentice Brother Tao, the demonic path has invaded the Southern Empire and the hearts of the people are wavering. It is best to be careful." Zhao Chan's eyelids jumped up. He glanced at Qin Yu and his complexion darkened. "Fellow Taoist Qin, are your words insinuating me?" Qin Yu remained expressionless. They were unintentional words. "If I offended you in any way, I ask that you forgive me. Farewell." He turned to leave. What arrogance! With a mere fourth-level foundation establishment cultivation, does he really think anyone would take a liking to him? That's right. If he doesn't come with us, then let's see just how far he can go. He might even be killed by a demonic path cultivator in the blink of an eye. A female cultivator from the Eastern Mountain sect had a contemptuous expression. It's just a lucky chance that allowed him to obtain the Grandmaster's charity. Otherwise, how could a mere outer court disciple compare with us? With the Southern Empire in chaos and the Eastern Mountain sect destroyed, she wanted to find a backer for herself. Zhao Chan, a core disciple of the Divine Water Sect, was without a doubt the best choice. Seeing Qin Yu speak rudely, she couldn't help but reveal her background. This female cultivator was Lin Lin. During the Foundation Establishment smelting trial, she had tried every method possible to get close to Su Wei, but now she didn't even glance at him. Everyone was startled. So this is that Eastern Mountain sect cultivator with heaven-defying luck. He doesn't seem like much at all. If it's him, then I understand. Could it be that everyone here doesn't know that fellow Taoist Qin is famous for his ability to protect his own life? He has abandoned his fellow disciples more than once, much less joined the army of the righteous faction to fight against the demonic path. Go away, go away. I'm ashamed to be associated with such a person. Hurry up and send him away. Just looking at him makes my eyes dirty. Lin Lin coldly sneered. At this time, if you still couldn't see the situation, then you only have yourself to blame for falling to this step. Hold on. Zhao Chan's eyes were ice cold. Fellow Taoist Qin has provoked us first and is also in a hurry to leave. I suspect that you have already become a spy of the demonic path. If we allow you to leave, then I fear it won't be long before we all have to report to the underworld. With these words, everyone's complexions changed. Many cultivators looked at him with ill intent. Tao Jie anxiously said, "Fellow Taoist Zhao Chan has misunderstood. Junior apprentice brother Qinyu is a disciple of my Easter Mountain sect and has a blood feud with the demonic path. So how could he possibly be a spy? Zhao Chan had no expression. I apologize, fellow Taoist Tao Jie. In order to ensure everyone's safety, Qinyu can only stay behind. If he insists on leaving, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Lin Lin voiced her support. Senior apprentice, brother Tao Jie. Qinyu's cultivation is low, and yet he was able to appear at the mountain entrance, unharmed. This place is surrounded by demonic path cultivators, so don't you think it's strange? She thought she was smart and had a smug look on her face. In particular, when Zhao Chan glanced at her with appreciation, she felt as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Tao Jie hesitated. He looked at Qinyu, indicating for him to hurry up and agree. Qinyu looked at Zhao Chan, his expression calm. You really won't let me leave? Zhao Chan's eyes were cold, as if he were looking at a dead man. A black-clothed cultivator stepped forwards from behind him. Demonic path spy, prepare to die. He punched out, his 8th level foundation establishment cultivation erupting. His fist was covered in a layer of flowing golden light that shimmered with a biting, killing intent. He is truly worthy of being a brilliant disciple of the divine water sect. This killing technique of controlling water is at least 10 times more profound than anything I have seen before. There are few foundation establishment cultivators that can compare with this magic art. The old man with a goatee stroked his beard and praised. He was a wandering cultivator that had luckily managed to escape. His 9th level foundation establishment cultivation was the highest amongst his group, and he was on the same level as Zhao Chan naturally. His words carried a great deal of weight. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. They sneered, as if they could already see the pitiful fate of this ungrateful boy. Qinyu, this chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. The cultivator who attacked him diabolically grinned. You think you can escape? Before his voice fell, his eyes widened in horror. A pitch-black figure appeared in front of Qinyu. An icy cold and cold aura caused everyone's scalps to tingle. And what left them even more horrified was the boundless demonic energy emanating from his body. Demonic path, golden core. Just as this horrifying thought appeared in everyone's mind, there was a dull, thumping sound. The cultivator who attacked him was smashed into the ground, dying on the spot with blood flowing out of his head. Zhao Chan panicked, all of his previous composure gone. My lord, please forgive me. This is all a misunderstanding. He kowtowed again and again, sweat dripping down his forehead. Qinyu narrowed his eyes. You said I was a spy from the demonic path, and I have already admitted it. So why would you say it's a misunderstanding? Zhao Chan lifted a hand and slapped his forehead. A twisted rune appeared and then shattered. His pure water attribute magic power began to fluctuate, turning into gloomy demonic energy. He respectfully said, My lord, this junior is a disciple of the 1,000 illusion demon sects, human-faced demon elder. I was ordered by my honorable master to gather blood and food to raise the earth demon beasts. The several people around him began to undo their illusions, revealing their true appearances. Tao Jie and the others were panic-stricken. They cried out in alarm and retreated again and again. Several female cultivators that had been sending flirtatious glances at Zhao Chan paled. They never imagined that Zhao Chan and the others that they had been relying on were actually demonic cultivators. Lin Lin froze where she was, her face deathly white. Zhao Chan held an inky jade in his hand. From the moment Black Sky Demon attacked, he hadn't loosened his grip at all. He carefully swept his eyes over Qinyu and continued to say, I wonder which sect, my lord, you are from? I ask that my lord forgive me if I have offended you. Qinyu had an indifferent expression. I am Black Sky Demon. Since you didn't know what happened today, if there is a next time, I will kill you without mercy. He turned and left. Zhao Chan, who had been staring at him, relaxed a little. He bowed and said farewell. Before he finished speaking, he felt a chill in his heart. Just as he was about to activate the inky jade scepter, he felt a sudden pain in his head, and in the next moment he was sent flying away, his head exploding in the air. Black Sky Demon's attack didn't stop at all. He rushed into the group of demonic cultivators like a fierce tiger. Miserable screams filled the air as several demonic cultivators died where they stood. Shwa! Black Sky Demon returned behind Chinyu. He lowered his head and grasped the inky jade scepter, allowing blood to drip down his hands. It was truly horrifying to the extreme. Tao Jia and the others were shocked. They didn't know what to think as they faced this scene, but as they saw Qin Yu's eyes sweep over them, they all revealed looks of awe. In particular, the several people who had been mocking Black Sky Demon just now paled and their legs trembled. Qin Yu didn't say anything. He turned and left. After several breaths of time, he and Black Sky Demon vanished from sight. The crowd fell deathly silent. After a long time, someone spoke up. Is he really the lucky cultivator you spoke of? Lin Lin's lips moved, but before she could speak, Tao Jie glared at her. Everyone, junior apprentice brother Qinyu, is not a demonic cultivator. Saving you and me today is the best evidence. I hope that no one will speak any nonsense in the future. Most of their eyes fell on Sue. Sue took a deep breath. My sect has already been destroyed. So what does a few grudges from the past count for? I won't say a single word about this. He lowered his head, clenching his fists beneath his sleeves. This boy that he had ignored in the past could already control their life and death? The crowd hesitated for a moment before nodding. Tao Jia relaxed a little. He had to lay the foundation for this matter from the very start. Otherwise, if news of Qinyu being a spy for the demonic path spread out, he wouldn't be able to wash himself clean in the future, even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Looking at the destroyed memorial archway, not too far away, Tao Jie recalled how Qinyu had been questioned and ridiculed by the entire sect not too long ago. He forced a smile. Junior apprentice brother Qinyu had truly hidden his strength. Chapter 34. Genius in a second, remember? Go. To provide you with wonderful novels to read. After leaving the Eastern Mountain sect, Qinyu used the soul-bearing flag to receive Black Sky Demon. He didn't know what sort of treasure that black jade scepter was, but it was actually able to enter the soul-bearing flag. It was no wonder that when Black Sky Demon killed Zhao Chan, he had instinctively taken this demonic treasure. With the help of this demonic treasure, Black Sky Demon would become even stronger. If so, then Qinyu's safety would be much more guaranteed. As he raced along, he encountered many fleeing cultivators. Several days later, he left the southwest region where the demonic path was wreaking havoc. Qinyu began to think about his next step. The demonic path had invaded on a massive scale. With their formidable strength, it wouldn't be long before most of the Southern Empire's territory was caught in the fires of war. Although he had the soul-bearing flag in hand, it still wasn't his own strength. Qin Yu was only at the 4th level of Foundation establishment. If he wasn't careful, he might fail miserably. It looks like I should find a place to hide. Qin Yu muttered to himself. With the little blue lamp, he didn't lack pills. What he lacked was time. With the Southern Empire in chaos, people would scatter everywhere. This was the perfect time to concentrate on cultivating. It would be best if he could directly reach Golden Core. At that time, no matter what the situation was, he would have the strength to protect himself. But before he went into seclusion, he needed to replenish his belongings. In particular, he needed various Foundation Establishment realm pills. The more the better. Shwa, Qinyu held away. 2 days later, billowing Wave City. As a great cultivation city of the Southern Empire, it was naturally bustling with activity. The towering city walls seemed to pierce through the skies and were dozens of feet thick. There were also countless array formations supporting them, making one feel safe from the inside out. Countless cultivators gathered from all directions. In just half a month's time, the huge city had become crowded. The streets were filled with people. But in this bustling scene, most of them were in a hurry, worry on their faces. The demonic path's invasion was like a saber hanging over everyone's heads. Even if it wouldn't fall soon, it still left them feeling uneasy. In the city's largest auction house, many rarely seen powerhouses had appeared. The auction house cultivators respectfully welcomed them as they walked in. Anyone with a bit of experience knew that there had to be some extraordinary treasure in today's auction to be able to attract so many powerful figures. Qin Yu followed the flow of people and handed over his proof. He stepped into the auction house. His fourth-level foundation establishment cultivation wasn't remarkable at all. I heard that a batch of elixirs was sent to the auction yesterday, so the auction house immediately publicized it. That's why we have such a grand occasion today. Elixir? Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Do you see those 6 people in the first row from the left? That is an elder of Immortal Eclipse Valley, an alchemy grandmaster who has spent his entire life dealing with pills. Would such a character come all the way here for a mere batch of pills? Humph! If these were ordinary pills, then the elders of Immortal Eclipse Valley wouldn't care about them at all. But according to what I know, there are 3 sets of foundation establishment realm essence soul, essence augmenting and body forging pills. There are 100 of each, and they are all top-grade pills. The cultivator proudly looked around. Do you know what a top-grade pill is? It's the best quality among its kind, and the potency of 1 pill is equivalent to 10 ordinary pills. That's nothing. The most heaven-defying thing about a supreme-grade pill is that it can be taken when a cultivator is making a breakthrough. It can increase the chances of success. Another person sneered. Think about it. What are the things that the major powers don't lack? Even for foundation establishment cultivators like us. But what about a golden core? They could be counted on one hand. These 3 sets of 300 top-grade pills had the potential to create 5 or even more golden core cultivators. With the demonic path's massive invasion, it would be strange if they didn't crazily fight over them. Just you wait. There will definitely be a sky-high price today. If this chapter isn't finished, please turn the page. As the discussion continued, Qin Yu closed his eyes and meditated, as if he didn't hear anything happening around him. The auction soon began. A red-faced old man stepped onto the high platform and cupped his hands across his chest. Today, powerful figures from all over have gathered here. My humble auction house is honored by your presence. The current situation is tense and everyone is busy, so I won't speak much. Let the auction officially begin. He clapped his hands, and a crystal jade box the size of a fishbowl was lifted up by 2 cultivators. They lifted off the red silk covering it, revealing the 300 pills that were neatly arranged inside. They were clearly displayed to everyone present. Within the crystal jade box, there were illuminating pearls inlaid within. The 300 light blue pills shined with a dazzling light. Their appearance was simply explosive. Walala, the entire auction house was stirred up. The 2 cultivators near the crystal jade box took a deep breath. They slowly released the aura of their golden core, covering the entire high platform. They could instantly react to any sign of trouble. The red-faced old man pressed his hands down. He excitedly said, "Today's first auction item is 300 top-grade foundation establishment realm pills. There are 3 groups of essence soul, essence augmenting, and body forging. 100 pills each. After a strict appraisal by my auction house, we have determined that all 300 pills are top grade. The 3 groups of pills will be divided into 3 auctions. Only raw materials will be used to bid. The first auction item is the first group of 100 essence soul pills. The base price is 1,000 sets of essence soul pill materials, and each increase must be no less than 100 sets. Now begin." When the Immortal Eclipse Valley Elder in the first row shouted out a bid of 8,000 sets, the entire auction hall went crazy. Everyone was frightened away by this terrifying bid. Without a doubt, the 100 top-grade Essence Soul pills were taken by Immortal Eclipse Valley. But following that, the bidding for the Essence Augmenting Pill and Body Forging Pill was no less intense. In fact, it was even more fiery. The chances of a top-grade pill being born were nearly negligible. It was unheard of for 300 to appear at once. Such an opportunity would be difficult to come by again. If they missed it, they might never be able to obtain it again. Immortal Eclipse Valley was famous for being rich and overbearing. During this auction, they had taken the limelight. But as they saw the 100 Essence Augmenting Pills being sold off once more, the other powerhouses couldn't sit still any longer. After a short discussion, they decided to join forces. Because of this, the final 100 body forging pills were sold for a heaven-shaking price of 11,000 sets and were won by the joint efforts of all parties. The Immortal Eclipse Valley Elder's complexion darkened. He flicked his sleeves and left. There were also many cultivators that couldn't withstand the boiling atmosphere in the auction hall. They left with pale faces and absent-minded expressions, their minds buzzing in confusion. 8,000 sets of Essence Soul pills, 8,000 sets of Essence Augmenting pills, 11,000 sets of Body Forging pills, for a total of 27,000 sets of raw materials. According to market price, although there were some fluctuations in the prices of these three types of raw materials, they could still be converted to roughly 3 spirit stones per set. That was 81,000 spirit stones. For a golden core cultivator, having several thousand spirit stones was already considered rich. 80,000 spirit stones was enough to make any cultivator below the nascent soul realm go red with envy. The auction house took a 20% cut of the profits, and with just this one transaction, they had earned a great deal of money. Thus, when they received these cultivators, they were naturally respectful to the extreme. Of course, this was inextricably linked to this person's powerful aura that was hidden deep in the mountains. Beneath his black robes, there was a thick Een energy. Where are the things? A stiff and hoarse voice came out without any rhythm, like 2 dry stones rubbing against each other. The auction house's chief manager warmly smiled. After deducting 20% of the 27,000 sets of materials, I have decided to give fellow Taoist 22,000 sets. According to your request, 10,000 sets of materials have been exchanged for a total of 30,000 spirit stones. As for the remaining 3 types of pill materials, there are 4,000 each. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Sets. The black-robed figure tossed out a storage bag. Put them in. The chief manager clapped his hands. 12,000 sets of materials and 30,000 spirit stones were placed into a room and then placed into the storage bag. Once the transactions were completed, both sides would tear up the contract and the transaction would be considered complete. I would like to borrow your place to rest for a while. Is that possible? The chief manager furrowed his eyebrows for a moment before concealing them. He smiled and said, "Since an honored guest has spoken, how could I refuse? Please bring the honored guest to the heaven-class private room to rest. If he has any requests, just follow them." He cupped his hands together and watched as the black-robed figure left with a guard. A strange light flashed in the chief manager's eyes, and he hesitated for a moment. "Teacher, this honored guest clearly has a great background. Why don't you try to form a closer relationship with him so that we can cooperate more in the future?" A youth beside him frowned. The chief manager shook his head. "What you want to say is why I acted according to the rules and did everything I could to disassociate myself from this person." The youth respectfully bowed. "I asked teacher to dispel my doubts." The chief manager's complexion darkened. "You are still too young. Do you really think that this world is as beautiful as you imagine it to be? Over 60,000 spirit stones. That is a great wealth that even I am moved by. Do you think those wolves, tigers, and leopards that have gathered here will let him go? So what if he was powerful? In the end, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. I fear this person won't even be able to walk 100 miles from billowing Wave City. Qin Yu followed the stream of people out of the auction house. He swept his eyes around and discovered many people with cold auras. They were looking around like hawks, as if they were looking for something. He quietly avoided the crowd and walked to a remote corner. His hand flashed with light as he took out the soul-burying flag. With a thought, a wisp of black energy rose up from the ground and fused into it. After doing this, Qin Yu left the corner and merged into the stream of people. He didn't stray too far from the auction house and entered a shop that sold all sorts of spirit plants. He originally only wanted to casually stroll around to pass the time, but soon he thought of buying them. The Medicine Codex had many methods to cultivate spirit plants. He didn't know how long he would be living in seclusion this time, so he might as well take this chance to study them. Before the Golden Core Realm, all sorts of pill materials could be bought. But for the Golden Core Realm and beyond, the spirit pills needed were incomparably precious and almost never circulated on the market. Perhaps there really would come a day when he would need to cultivate them himself, so it was best to prepare early. After making up his mind, Qin Yu began to earnestly choose spirit plants. If he didn't look, he wouldn't know that there were hundreds of different types of spirit plants. He didn't look at the energy condensation realm spirit plants. They were mainly needed for the Foundation Establishment realm and the Golden Core realm. He didn't consider anything higher. Of course, he didn't look at them even if he wanted to. The seeds of nascent soul realm spirit plants were extremely valuable, and they had to be carefully preserved. It was impossible for him to take them out for everyone to see. Qin Yu thought of the small bag of seeds in Black Sky Demon's storage bag. If they were so carefully preserved, then they shouldn't be ordinary. He wanted to try cultivating them, and perhaps there would be a pleasant surprise. An hour later, Qin Yu had chosen 37 different kinds of spirit plants. Perhaps it was because the great chaos was about to arrive, but he had spent nearly 100 spirit stones. This attracted many surprised gazes. It could be seen that Qin Yu was young, and his cultivation wasn't ordinary. In addition to his calm demeanor, many people wondered if he was a disciple of some large sect. Such a person would often have a powerhouse following them, so no one dared to have any evil thoughts towards him. As Qin Yu was putting away the seeds, there was a sudden uproar outside. The people waiting outside the auction house all rushed out with gloomy expressions. There were even some people who ignored the uproar and sent out signals in front of everyone. Soon, canopies rose up from billowing Wave City and rushed out of the city, soon vanishing from sight. Chapter 35. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. As the crowd cried out in alarm, Qin Yu sneered inwardly. It seemed that the disappearance of the consignor had already been discovered. Love, go, small, say, Netka, but no matter how these people racked their brains, they couldn't suspect him. Black Sky Demon was currently in the soul-bearing flag, and the storage bag was in the black jade scepter. This demonic treasure was not material, but was condensed from pure demonic energy. It hovered between reality and illusion, so it could contain a storage bag and be stored in the soul-bearing flag. After Qin Yu discovered this, he changed his plans at the last minute, leading to today's events. From the looks of it, the effect was quite good. 3 days later, the undercurrents in billowing Wave City gradually subsided. Qin Yu left the inn and followed the stream of people out of the bustling city. After walking for dozens of miles, he looked back at the huge monster lying on the ground. He secretly decided that the next time he came here, he would not be as cautious as he was today. Instead, he would rely on his own strength to make others not dare to act recklessly. Whoosh! He rushed into the jungle and found the chicken overlord waiting for him. Then he didn't stop and continued heading northeast. Half a month later, the travel-worn Qin Yu stopped outside a rolling mountain range. As he carefully looked around, surprise flashed in his eyes before he revealed a look of satisfaction. The terrain of the mountain was dangerous, and it was difficult for mortals to enter. What was even more amazing was that there was an extreme lack of spiritual power, so cultivators would not be interested in it. Moreover, it was far from the range of the demonic path, so it was a good place to live in seclusion and cultivate. Qin Yu passed through the forest and carefully investigated for a day. Then he discovered another barren land in the forest. This land was surrounded by mountains on all sides, forming a giant valley with steep cliffs. The 100 blades were hidden deep within the rolling mountains. It was nearly impossible to find them. This is it. When others chose a place to go into seclusion, the most important requirement was spiritual strength. But to Qin Yu, this wasn't a problem at all. Who told him to walk the path of taking pills from the start? He didn't care about heavenly paradises or anything like that. With his foundation establishment cultivation combined with the power of the demon body, this was extremely easy to accomplish. Half a day later, several wide wooden houses rose from the ground. Then he used the leftover materials to construct some simple tables and chairs. Now that he had a place to stay, the next step was slightly more troublesome, which was to lay down a simple array formation to conceal his aura from the outside world. This was also one of the reasons why Qin Yu wanted to exchange for spirit stones. The path of array formations was broad and profound. Since Qin Yu hadn't studied them, he naturally couldn't cross the threshold. But what he laid down wasn't some profound array formation. Within the Eastern Mountain sect's inner court disciple identity token, there are several simple cave-dwelling array formations. As long as he had enough spirit stones, it wouldn't be difficult to lay them down. After spending 3 days and burying 400 spirit stones into the ground, clouds and mist emerged out of thin air and covered the entire valley. Qin Yu climbed up the mountain and looked at the first array formation he had personally laid down in his life. Then he looked around and saw that this fog didn't stand out at all. Rather, it blended in with the other natural clouds and fog and was completely unremarkable. Only then did he reveal a smile. Returning to the valley, Qin Yu looked up at the bright sun. He sighed with emotion at how miraculous array formations were. If he had a chance in the future, he would study them. Now, it was better to seize the time and cultivate. He dived into the wooden hut. He was extremely familiar with the place he had built himself. Without any intention of looking around, he sat cross-legged on the praying mat. Take pills and cultivate. When refining top-grade pills, magic power surged within them. This was something that ordinary people couldn't experience, so Qin Yu never thought that going into seclusion was a difficult task. Unfortunately, most of the remaining pills he had on hand had been sold at the auction house. Thus, after several days, he had no choice but to temporarily stop. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn to the next page. As a cultivator with a little blue lamp, lacking pills was a shameful matter. Qin Yu summoned Black Sky Demon and took out a storage bag. With a loud clang, he set down the fleeting flame furnace. There was no need to say anything. It was time to begin. 12,000 sets of materials. With 4,000 sets of essence soul, essence augmenting and body forging materials, according to his current success rate, he could refine at least 6,000 pills. In addition to the purification effects of the little blue lamp, if he still couldn't enter the golden core realm with all of this, then he might as well buy a piece of tofu and commit suicide. Half a month later, 900 freshly refined pills had been refined. Qin Yu fell to the ground and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because he was in his own home, but he slept quite soundly. He woke up at night. He quickly took out the little blue lamp and began to promote the pills. Although he had seen this countless times, every time he saw the most ordinary pills slowly turn pale blue in the foot-long sea blue light, he couldn't help but sigh in praise from the depths of his soul. The little blue lamp was truly a treasure that could seize the good fortune of the heavens and earth. After sighing with emotion, he continued to cultivate. And when it came to cultivating, it was easy to become addicted to top-grade pills. Like this, he cultivated again and again. In the blink of an eye, over 2 months passed. When Qin Yu suppressed the joy in his heart from breaking into the 6th level of foundation establishment, he suddenly frowned. He felt as if he had forgotten something. Soon, he rubbed his forehead and bitterly smiled. I've already marked out the area, and I didn't hesitate to use spirit stones to lay down the array formation. But I actually forgot to plant spirit seeds. He had wasted over 2 months of growth time in vain. Luckily, it wasn't too late to make up for it. Qin Yu took out a majestic dark steel saber from his storage bag and slung it over his shoulder. He walked out of the wooden house and began his vigorous life as a farmer. But never had he imagined that this sudden action would actually push open another gorgeous door before his eyes, and it would provide a formidable assistance to his path of cultivation. Creak! The door to the wooden house was pushed open, and a black-robed youth slowly walked out. He was taller than before, and his slightly immature face was now calm and steady. He stood at the door and stretched his waist. There was a series of crackling sounds from his body, and a light breeze rustled his robes. He revealed a light smile. This youth was Qin Yu. It had already been 2 years since he had gone into seclusion, and his cultivation had reached the 9th level of foundation establishment. He was just a step away from breaking into golden core. A bamboo dragonfly flew over and landed on his shoulder. Qin Yu lifted a hand and poured magic power into it. It spread its wings and flew away, soon vanishing from sight. The bamboo dragonfly had a trace of his divine sense within it. If someone were to intrude into the mountain valley, he would immediately awaken from his cultivation. All he needed to do was to pour in magic power once every month. The massive valley had already been reclaimed. Mountain springs were drawn in from not too far away to irrigate the land. All sorts of spiritual plants grew separately, forming a lush green medicinal field. When it came to cultivating spiritual plants, although it seemed simple, it was actually extremely troublesome. This was especially true when it came to pollinating spiritual plants, and they had to be carefully taken care of so that other pollen wouldn't contaminate them. Even though the medicine codex had all sorts of detailed records, Qin Yu's road of cultivating spiritual plants wasn't smooth at all. He had to spend a great deal of effort to raise them. Unfortunately, spiritual plants grew far too slowly, and the more precious and high rank a spiritual plant was, the slower it would grow. For example, there were 3 golden core realm spiritual plants. In 2 years, they had just passed the seedling stage and were still several dozen years away from maturity. Thinking of this, Qin Yu subconsciously frowned. As he thought of the various raw materials he would need for pills in the future, he bitterly smiled. It seemed that even with the little blue lamp, he wouldn't be able to travel the road of cultivation smoothly. After inspecting the medicinal field and determining that there weren't any major problems, Qin Yu walked in. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Carefully trimming, plowing the soil, weeding, catching insects, irrigation. Each of these tasks had to be adjusted according to the species. For example, the fire thread grass could not be watered too much, or it would quickly wither. The water flower, on the other hand, had to be watered enough for it to grow normally. These trivial matters didn't cause Qin Yu to become impatient. His expression was calm and his movements were smooth like flowing water. His entire mind was in a relaxed state. This was also a type of cultivation. What he cultivated was the path of tranquility. After a short period of tranquility, swallowing pills and refining them would often be smoother. After dealing with the last medicinal field, Qin Yu stood up and let out a sigh of relief. He walked over to the canal to wash his hands. As he saw 2 withered yellow seedlings not too far away, he subconsciously frowned. He walked over to take a look. Although he had taken care of them according to the medicine codex, their condition was deteriorating day by day. He feared they wouldn't be able to last much longer. Qin Yu revealed a regretful expression. These 2 seedlings were the spiritual plants in Black Sky Demon's storage bag. At the start, they were smoothly planted. Not long after they broke through the soil and grew to their current size, they immediately fell into this sickly state. If they were ordinary spiritual plants, then that would be fine, but Qin Yu had determined their identity in the medicine codex. They were an extinct ancient spiritual plant, 1,000-gold mulberry. Coincidentally, Qin Yu had obtained the ancient beast dominion art from Black Sky Demon, and there was a list of ancient insects. The 73rd ranked purple-backed blue-wing ant was a creature that ate 1,000 gold mulberries. There was a rumor in the Southern Empire that the #1 immortal cultivation sect, Immortal Eclipse Valley, had purple-backed blue-wing ants as their guardian spirit beast. If they could raise 1,000 gold mulberries, what a pity, these two carefully tended 1,000 gold mulberries would soon wither away. Qin Yu was filled with helplessness. He thought for a moment and then dug up the 2,000 gold mulberries. He placed them in a round basin and moved them into his room. Since they were about to die anyway, he might as well give it a try. Perhaps the withering of the 1,000 gold mulberries was related to the sunlight? The interior of the wooden cabin was simple and crude, but the wooden frame that held the pills was actually quite exquisite. It was driven by a stream of water drawn in by the bamboo tube and slowly rotated at all times. This ensured that the little blue lamp hanging above could help all the pills on the wooden frame advance as time passed. Looking around, Qin Yu casually placed the 2,000 gold mulberries in a corner of the wooden frame. Then he walked into his training chamber and sat down on a round cushion, calming his mind. After a long time, when his mind had completely calmed down, he flicked his sleeves and 5 jade bottles appeared in front of him. Each jade bottle contained 30 essence augmenting pills for a total of 150. During this seclusion, Qin Yu would borrow these 150 top-grade essence augmenting pills to attack the Golden Core realm. He lifted a hand and opened a bottle. He took out 4 essence augmenting pills and swallowed them down. After many experiments, he found that 4 pills was the best amount to absorb the medicinal efficacy the fastest. Any more, and it would be a waste. Bang! The medicinal efficacy spread through his limbs and bones, fusing with his flesh and blood and transforming into spiritual strength. Then it was absorbed and sank into his Dantian Sea, constantly fusing into his foundation. At this time, with his 9th level foundation establishment cultivation, his foundation hadn't increased in size. Instead, its color had turned a deep and translucent blue. It emitted a jade-like light, giving off a vast and boundless feeling of majesty. Time passed a day at a time. The great Tao foundation within Qin Yu's Dantian Sea had turned blue to the extreme. A halo of light flowed around it, faster and faster. Suddenly, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open, and he swallowed down 10 essence augmenting pills. At this time, he didn't care about wasting them because there was a light cracking sound in his Dantian Sea. It was like the first crack in winter ice, and the halo of light that flowed around the great Tao foundation began to gather towards the center. The entire great Tao foundation darkened. Only the center was like a blazing sun, erupting with light that couldn't be looked at directly. At this time, the great Tao foundation could be seen as a thick layer of earth. After countless years of accumulating strength, the thing that had been bred here would finally break through the earth. Hashtag I had been uploading and updating automatically, but I suddenly discovered that I ran out of manuscripts for today, so I hurriedly reposted them. Sorry. Chapter 36. Genius in 1 second. Remember, love, go away. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. An astonishing absorption rate came from the great Tao base. The 10 essence augmenting pills were instantly swallowed up. Qin Yu lifted the jade bottle and tossed it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing it. The turning point for a breakthrough was right in front of him. If he succeeded today, he would be able to reach Golden Core. The light in the center of the great Tao base became increasingly bright. He crazily swallowed pills and barely managed to keep up with the absorption rate of the great Tao base. But at this time, Qin Yu's body shook. He stuffily coughed, and blood flowed out from his nose and mouth. He opened his eyes. They were incomparably dim, revealing a look of disappointment. He had failed. Luckily, he had the experience of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm. Qin Yu never thought he would succeed in one try. He took several deep breaths, the depression in his heart dispersing. He began to observe his body. Within his Dantian Sea, the light in the center of the great Tao base had faded away. The base itself was much dimmer. It was clear it had been damaged because of the failed breakthrough. But the color seemed to be much richer than before. With a thought, a bit of magic power gushed out. Qin Yu was stunned. It seemed it was a bit purer than before. Strange. He had never heard of anyone having such a benefit after failing a breakthrough. Qin Yu's face was cloudy and uncertain. In the depths of his dark eyes, a light began to gush out. If the magic power in his body was considered a bucket of water with a purity of 10%, then, after breaking through, there would only be half a bucket left and the purity would be 9%. Everyone was clear about the benefits of having pure magic power. This was a qualitative improvement. Usually, only extremely high-level cultivation techniques would have the effect of refining magic power. That was why the disciples of the famous sects could suppress everyone else. And every one of them was outstanding, whether it was using magic arts or controlling treasures. If someone used the same amount of magic power, they would only need 50% of their magic power to match their full strength. This was the power of pure magic power. What Qin Yu cultivated was the Eastern Mountain sect's ungraded true wood arts. It was so incomplete that there were only 3 pages left. But today he seemed to have found a way to forcefully change the quality of his magic power. When others failed to break through to Golden Core, their mortal body would suffer an impact of magic power and they would be severely wounded. But he only had a pale complexion and a slight shift in his organs. With the demon body's powerful regenerative abilities, he would likely be able to recover from this minor injury after a nap. This meant that he could attempt to break through every few days. Even if he failed, he could still purify his mana. Under the situation where the total amount of mana could not be increased, the higher the quality of the mana was, the more mana was concentrated, and the stronger his strength would be. If so, then it would be better to delay the day he broke into the Golden Core realm so he could purify his magic power a few more times. If he missed this opportunity, he might have to wait until he broke into nascent soul. With this in mind, Qin Yu felt much better. He swallowed several body-forging pills to repair his mortal body. Reality proved that the demon body's regenerative abilities were far stronger than he had imagined. After a day and night, all of his wounds had been restored to their original state. After swallowing several essence-augmenting pills, his magic power was filled to the brim. As he looked into his Dantian Sea and saw the even more dazzling Great Tao base, his lips curled up. Continue. He opened the jade bottle and poured in the medicine. The light of the Great Tao base condensed once more. An hour later, there was a stuffy cough. Qin Yu wiped the blood from the corners of his lips and felt the increasingly pure magic power in his body. He smiled. He swallowed a pill to repair his body. In theory, the process of breaking through was to condense one's magic power and break through a critical point to reach the goal of increasing one's boundary. Thus, even if one failed, their magic power would become purer during the breakthrough process. But no one could compare with Qin Yu in terms of pills. He could eat top-grade pills like medicine to restore a massive amount of spiritual strength. Thus, the purity of the magic power that other cultivators obtained after failing couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as his. There was also another important reason, and that was the strength of the demon body. If one were to compare a person to a bucket, the stronger the bucket was, the stronger the impact it could withstand, and the better the concentration would be. On the other hand, if magic power broke through the impact and the pressure drained onto the body, the result would be greatly reduced. This was the reason why Qin Yu was different from others. He could use his failure to break into the Golden Core realm to purify the magic power in his body. It was basically impossible to replicate. Don't. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. There was a dull thumping sound in the training room. Strong winds rose up, shattering the windows and sending them flying away. Countless cracks appeared in the ground like spider webs. Chinyu opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. The stabbing pain in his chest caused his face to pale. As he carefully investigated the state of his body, the joy in his eyes gradually turned to worry. This was the 7th time he had failed a breakthrough. As the purity of his magic power increased, the impact of his magic power when he failed also became increasingly strong. At the start, it was only able to cause minor injuries to him, but now it was able to truly injure him. Although he was fine right now and could recover after a few more days of rest, what Chinyu worried about was that if he continued to fail, sooner or later his mortal body wouldn't be able to withstand it. As he thought about the possibility that one day he would explode into pieces due to a failed breakthrough, his complexion darkened. After a long time, he bitterly smiled. Indeed, there were pros and cons. There was no such thing as an absolute good in this world. If he couldn't find a solution for now, he could only suppress his worries. Golden core, why is it so difficult to break through? Chinyu mumbled to himself. He had completely forgotten that not too long ago he had been hoping that his breakthrough would come later. After 10 days, Chinyu finally recovered from the backlash of his magic power. After hesitating for a moment, he didn't dare to continue breaking through. He stood up and left the training room. As he thought, the bamboo dragonfly had already flown to the door of the cabin and fallen into a deep slumber. Chinyu shook his head and poured in magic power. The bamboo dragonfly trembled and woke up. Its wings vibrated with increasing strength, and a pair of eyes that were refined from some unknown material began to shine. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, it vanished from sight. Chinyu was a little relieved. At the very least, the effects of purifying his magic power were clearly displayed on the bamboo dragonfly. The magic power he poured in this time could likely last for 3 months or even longer. He looked around the medicine field. While the bamboo dragonfly was sleeping, no one had come in. There were only several bite marks on a corner of the 7-star flower medicine field. Chinyu frowned and cursed this glutton. He had warned it not to mess around in the medicine field, but it actually dared to be so brazen. He had to find a chance to teach it a lesson. As he was thinking, the fog at the edge of the mountain valley began to tumble, gradually turning transparent to reveal a flock of brightly feathered pheasants. The pheasant at the front was tall and proud. As it strode forward, it would shake its wings from time to time. Soon, a beautiful hen would appear and carefully comb its feathers. The chicken overlord looked at the mountain valley with a smug expression. Its small eyes stiffened as it squawked several times. The flock of hens obediently retreated to the back. The chicken overlord flapped its wings and flew over. As it landed, it began to act like a spoiled child, wagging its tail and rubbing its trousers. Soon, a beautiful hen would appear and carefully comb its feathers. Ever since 2 years ago, when the Eastern Mountain sect was in ruins, it had seen Chinyu summon Black Sky Demon to slaughter Zhao Chan and the others. Ever since then, it had become this shameless and unscrupulous appearance. Moreover, as time passed, it seemed to become increasingly serious. Of course, in front of other chickens, it was still very arrogant. No, it was much more arrogant than before. Its cheap and despicable appearance, as if it had a backer, made one's teeth itch. Chin, you kicked it away, sneering again and again. It seems you've grown bolder recently. You actually dared to defy me and steal the spirit plants in the medicine field. The chicken overlord hopped up and down, its wings pointing at the heavens and cursing the earth. Its wronged appearance caused Chinyu's eyebrows to arch up. He was already familiar with this little fellow's temperament. If it really did something wrong, then it would act like a spoiled child and beg for forgiveness. Wasn't it the one who did it? But the mountain valley was protected by an array formation. If it wasn't the chicken overlord, then what else could have entered? Chinyu walked into the 7-star flower medicinal field. He squatted down and carefully looked around. There were several shallow footprints on the ground. It really wasn't the chicken overlord. Yu didn't pay attention to its aggrieved expression that seemed to say, "Master, you've wronged me." He stood up and walked to the edge of the mountain valley. He dug up the dirt and found a spirit stone. As he thought, the spirit stone buried here was extremely turbid. Just touching it would cause it to disintegrate. He quickly took several steps forward and dug out a second spirit stone. It was a bit better, but it hadn't broken yet. If this chapter wasn't finished, please turn the page. It was already turbid and wouldn't be able to last much longer. He checked several more spirit stones and found that most of them were the same. It seemed that the array formation was gradually losing effectiveness, allowing some wild creature to break into the medicinal field. Yu frowned. According to what he knew, this sort of simple array formation had an extremely low consumption of spirit stones. After laying it down, it should have been able to last for several years. But now it had only been 2 years, and the spirit stones had run out of spiritual strength. There seemed to be something wrong, but he couldn't find the reason for this. He could only attribute it to the lack of heaven and earth origin energy here, causing the consumption of spirit stones to accelerate. It was only 400 spirit stones. To Yu, who had over 60,000 spirit stones on him, he naturally didn't care about them at all. He replaced them all to prevent the medicinal field from being damaged. He glanced at the chicken overlord. This fellow was looking at him with a pitiful expression. He didn't know how it had been trained, but its eyes were always watery. Yu jokingly cursed. He took out several pills, and the chicken overlord wolfed them down, a look of enjoyment on its face. But in the end, there were only 2 left. Seeing that Yu didn't object, it picked them up with its beak and flew out of the mountain valley. When it landed in front of a flock of hens, it immediately puffed up its chest. With a flap of its wings, 2 of the brightest hens walked out. They were each rewarded with a pill, immediately putting on an expression that said, "I love you so much." The other hens rushed over with red eyes. They rubbed against each other and cried out. The chicken overlord was teased to the point where its appetite was greatly aroused. With a strange cry, it led them into the woods. To use top-grade pills to feed a spirit beast, and a useless chicken at that, there was no one else in the entire 100,000 miles of the Southern Empire that could do this. You didn't think too much about it, or perhaps he didn't care. With pills, he could live a heroic life. He had met the chicken overlord at the beginning. Since they were fated to meet again, he had to treat it well. Of course, this fellow was cute and silly, so it was good to adjust his mood. He patted his hands and went to wash them in the canal. Then he subconsciously turned his head and remembered that the 2,000 gold mulberries had been transplanted into the house. He hadn't noticed them just now, but they had likely withered away by now. Yu walked into the wooden house with regret in his heart. As he swept his eyes around, he was stunned. The 2,000 gold mulberries didn't have the slightest wilted appearance from before. Instead, they were growing with incomparable vigor and vitality. They had actually grown a foot high and spat out several small mulberry leaves that were dotted with golden stars. They naturally emitted an ancient and boundless aura. Yu was stunned for a long time. His eyes slowly shifted towards the little blue lamp. Even with his current mood, he couldn't help but feel his throat go dry. The 1,000 gold mulberries were placed on the wooden frame. As the wooden frame flowed with the current, it would eventually touch the foot of sea blue light. If it was said that the 1,000 gold mulberries reversal had nothing to do with the little blue lamp, you wouldn't believe it. If this was true, at this time cultivating, breaking through, everything else was tossed to the back of his mind. He turned and rushed out to transplant different spirit plants from the various medicine fields, eagerly waiting for night to fall. When the sun fell and the long day finally passed, the dim light of night covered the mountain valley. The little blue lamp began to release a deep blue light. The spirit plants were bathed in this blue light, as if they were covered in a layer of precious light. Then an astonishing scene appeared. All of the spirit plants began to sway back and forth. Their leaves gently shivered in excitement, as if they had swallowed the greatest tonic in the world. They began to grow at an incomparably slow but firm pace. The rising sun pierced through the darkness. Golden sunlight sprinkled over the earth. Qin Yu was still sitting on the ground, a blank look on his face. This sort of blankness wasn't confusion. Rather, it was a natural reaction that occurred when a person's mind couldn't bear it. After a long time, he blinked his eyes and pinched himself. It hurt. This really wasn't a dream. Qin Yu reared his head back and laughed. His hearty laughter passed through the wooden house and echoed throughout the mountain valley. The little blue lamp, my little blue lamp, it is truly worthy of being the most mystical treasure in the world. On this day, besides being a pill used to upgrade himself, Qin Yu also discovered a second use, to accelerate the growth of spirit plants. Chapter 37. Genius in 1 second, remember love, go away. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. After a night of bathing in a foot of sea blue light, all the spirit plants would enter a mature period. This was equal to 3 years of natural growth. After a moment of ecstasy, Qin Yu calmed down and immediately began a new experiment. Since he had discovered a second use for the little blue lamp, why couldn't there be a third or fourth? Thinking of this possibility, Qin Yu's calm heart began to heat up once more. 3 days later, Qin Yu's experiment came to an end. He had placed over 100 different items into the foot of sea blue light, and the final result caused his blood to cool down a little. The little blue lamp could accelerate the growth of all plants. Even if they weren't spirit plants, bathing in this blue light could still improve their quality. In other words, they could transform into spirit plants. But correspondingly, no flesh and blood creature could absorb the blue light released by the little blue lamp. Refining materials, magic tools, and even spirit stones were similarly ineffective. Qin Yu was a bit disappointed, but he immediately understood. The 2 uses of the little blue lamp could already be called heaven-defying. If it were any more powerful, then perhaps even the heavens wouldn't allow it to appear in this world. He should be satisfied. With the ability to accelerate the growth of spirit plants, he wouldn't have to worry about refining high-level pills in the future. The only pity was that the sea blue light was only a foot long and couldn't be used on a large scale. For now, it could only accelerate the growth of some high-level spirit plants, such as the 1,000-gold mulberry. According to the Medicine Codex, 1,000-gold mulberry could evolve into a great sun mulberry after 1,000 years, and at 10,000 years, it could evolve into the ancient starry sky. The purple-back blue-wing ants raised by the great sun mulberry had a certain chance of evolving into the 24th ranked ancient insect, the yin-yang twin ant. Their wings were black and white, and they didn't fear the power of the 5 elements. They were incomparably bloodthirsty, and their killing power was astonishing. Even a nascent soul cultivator could only flee if they encountered them. As for the ultimate version of the ancient starry sky, the reason it was called this was because at this stage, a starry sky would appear on every mulberry leaf. It was rumored that these leaves contained the power of the starry skies. If the yin-yang twin ant ate this, it would have a chance of evolving into an ancient ant. This ant was ranked 6th on the ancient insect list. It jumped out of the 5 elements of yin and yang and could fly through the heavens and earth. In ancient times, if this ant became a plague, wherever it passed, all life would be cut off, leaving not a single blade of grass behind. Its terrifying might was beyond imagination. Qin Yu wiped the drool from the corners of his lips. He thought that he would definitely have to make a trip to Immortal Eclipse Valley in the future. If he could obtain the purple-back blue-wing ants, that would be the same as grasping a great killing tool that could evolve. Then, the ancient beast dominion art would truly shine. But right now, he was just a mere foundation establishment cultivator. If he went to Immortal Eclipse Valley to steal the tiger's whiskers, that would be no different from seeking death. The most important matter right now was to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Only by reaching Golden Core would he have the strength to protect himself. Love, go, small, say, Nekkahi had the 2,000 gold mulberries continue to stay on the wooden frame. Then he rested for a moment and began to refine pills. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to smash open the gates of the Golden Core Great Tao with a massive amount of pills. 3 months later, the earth-shattering sound was like muffled thunder. The wooden house that was used as a training room was directly smashed. Countless broken pieces of wood flew in all directions, destroying many spiritual plants in the medicine field. Dust and smoke rose everywhere. A series of coughs could be heard as vision blurred. The coughs were so intense that people were worried that their chests would be torn apart. Chinyu coughed as he spat out blood. Countless tiny cracks appeared on the surface of his body. He was like a pot that had been burnt in a kiln, his entire body a bloody gourd. It was only after a long time that he managed to stop. He slumped to the ground, gasping for breath. Every breath he took was like countless knives, cutting into his windpipe and lungs. The pain was so intense that his vision turned black. His 17th attempt to break into Golden Core had failed. The injuries he suffered this time were far more terrifying than Chinyu expected. If it weren't for the powerful degree of the demon body, then he would have already turned into a pile of minced meat. But even though his hands and feet were intact, his body was riddled with holes. If it were anyone else with such injuries, and they didn't have a spiritual object to heal their mortal body, they would have been crippled. With the powerful regenerative abilities of the demon body, as well as abundant pills to restore himself, Chinyu was able to carefully move around after a month and recover to his original state after 4 months. Then he didn't dare to try again. He really didn't dare to. He even stopped cultivating. Chinyu was now infinitely close to the Golden Core realm. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. The magic power in the sea was inconceivably pure. The slightest movement would cause it to boil over. At that time, he wouldn't even be able to decide before he attacked the Golden Core realm once more. If he succeeded, then that would be good. But if he failed as he imagined the scene of flesh exploding like fireworks, Chinyu felt a cold sweat drip down his forehead. Standing in the mountain valley, he looked up 45 degrees into the skies. Looking at the bright moon, Chinyu gently sighed. Breaking into Golden Core, why is it so fucking difficult? 17 times, you bastard. It's already a miracle that I haven't died yet. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer. His angry roars echoed through the mountains and forests. Countless vicious night beasts tucked their tails between their legs and turned to flee. The chicken overlord shrank its head back. It decided that it wouldn't return in the near future, lest the wrath of others take out on it and tear it apart. After venting out the anger in his heart, Chinyu felt much more comfortable. He turned and sat down in front of his cabin. That night, he thought about it for a long time. Finally, he decided to leave the mountain. He had to find the reason why he couldn't form a golden core and cut it to pieces. He inspected the array formation and tidied up the medicine garden. Then he filled the bamboo dragonfly with magic power and placed the little blue lamp, pills, and 2,000 gold mulberries into his storage bag. As the sun rose, Chinyu easily climbed up the mountain. He looked back at the place he had lived in for 3 years and then left. Perhaps some people haven't heard of Immortal Eclipse Valley, but there is no one who doesn't know of my Heaven-Seek Pavilion. These words came from the shopkeeper of a large city of Heaven-Seek Pavilion and were widely spread throughout the Southern Empire. Even the overbearing number 1 sect of the Southern Empire remained silent. Without a doubt, this proved the credibility of these words. After Chinyu left the mountain, he didn't need to spend much effort to obtain this news. Then he rushed thousands of miles to Canyon Dwell City. Today, there were many cultivators entering and leaving the city, all of them nervous and hurried. This was because the fires of war in the southwest region of the Southern Empire had spread out over the last 3 years. Canyon Dwell City was built next to a 10,000-foot wide and bottomless canyon. It bordered on the edge of the battlefield, and the various sects of the Southern Empire had dispatched cultivators to gather here. They wanted to take advantage of the city's geographical advantage to wage war against the demonic path. This also explained why so many cultivators had come to Canyon Dwell City. Qin Yu followed the stream of people into the city. After a simple inquiry, he found a 3-story pavilion that shined brightly on the long street. Heaven Seek Pavilion. Written on a giant red sandalwood plaque were 3 large characters, their momentum like a rainbow. The spirit and contained within them were like a great sun, making it hard for one to look directly at them. The momentum was enough, but wasn't it supposed to be an omniscient place that sold the news of the world and was known as an omniscient place? This sort of domineering aura didn't match the temperament of Heaven Seek Pavilion at all. Whispering to himself, Qin Yu stepped into Heaven Seek Pavilion. Luckily, the reception was perfect. A beautiful female cultivator immediately greeted him, her smile pleasing to the eye. She curtsied. The front of her robe was a bit large, revealing a bit of creamy white cleavage. Welcome, guest, to Heaven Seek Pavilion. If there is anything you need, please follow this servant inside. Qin Yu calmly nodded and followed behind. Looking at her swaying waist, he soon entered a separate room. A maid brought up refreshments. The female cultivator gestured. Guest, please sit. May I ask what you would like to know? Qin Yu frowned. The female cultivator's smile didn't diminish. Guest, please rest assured that Heaven Seek Pavilion has an inheritance of nearly 1,000 years and has never divulged any information about our guests. Qin Yu hesitated for a moment. I would like to know the reason why I am unable to break into the Golden Core realm. The female cultivator smiled, not caring about Qin Yu's cautiousness. Of all the cultivators she came into contact with in the past, there were many that were even more cautious than him. Honored guest, you must know that everyone's physique is different and their experiences are different. Thus, the reasons are also different. You will need to explain in detail what ails you so that this servant can find the information you need. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn to the next page. Qin Yu refused. It's not convenient. The female cultivator thought for a moment. If that's the case, then there is only one method. That is for Heaven Seek Pavilion to sell all the information we know about why you are unable to break into the Golden Core realm. But the cost will be high. After all, information is different from other things. After selling it, it will be difficult to keep it. Qin Yu had a calm expression. Name a price. The female cultivator said to wait a moment. Then her red lips parted and she said, 5,000 spirit stones. This price was indeed ridiculously high. Even an ordinary golden core might not have such wealth, much less the 6th-level foundation establishment cultivation that Qin Yu is currently revealing. The female cultivator didn't think much of Qin Yu, but in the next moment her eyes widened. Qin Yu nodded. That's fine. He casually tossed out 5,000 spirit stones. Without mentioning anything else, just this attitude alone was enough to shock anyone. The female cultivator soon composed herself. Guest, according to the rules of Heaven Seek Pavilion, Qin Yu took out a storage bag. With a thought, 5,000 spirit stones piled up into a small mountain. The female cultivator counted them and put them away. Her tone became a bit more respectful. Guest, please wait a moment. She went out and left. Soon, she returned with a jade scroll. Qin Yu took it and probed it with his divine sense. There was unexpectedly much information within the jade slip. There were all sorts of strange reasons for not being able to form a golden core that surpassed his imagination. Even so, he didn't dare to be careless. He carefully looked through them one by one and compared them to himself. Soon, a piece of information entered his eyes. If a cultivator swallows too many pills, medicinal residue will remain in their body, causing their golden core to be unable to form. Qin Yu's heart shrank, but he maintained his composure. He finished reading through all the information. When he took back his divine sense, the jade slip in his hand shattered into powder. The female cultivator said apologetically, "Honored guest, Heaven-Seek Pavilion's information does not leave the gates. I ask for your understanding." Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. "I understand the rules." He paused for a moment and then said, "I would like to purchase some information." He immediately chose the 4 reasons for not being able to form a golden core from the jade slip. Medicinal residue was naturally one of them. 200 spirit stones for each piece of information. All right. With a wave of his hand, he took out 800 spirit stones. The female cultivator was already prepared this time. She took out a blank jade slip and inserted her divine sense into it. "Guest, please take a look." Qin Yu calmly found the method to resolve the medicinal residue. Sky Thunder Bamboo, a rare ancient spiritual plant. The thunder it releases has the effect of dispelling impurities from the body. Although it was only for this one, Qin Yu deliberately looked at it for a bit longer. He looked up and crushed the jade slip. "Farewell." As he stood up to leave, the female cultivator smiled. "Honored guest has spent a great deal of money in my Heaven-Seek Pavilion. In return, I will give you a piece of information for free. The various sects of the Heavenly South are preparing to fight the demonic path. In order to boost their morale, they have taken out many treasures, one of which is the Sky Thunder Bamboo." Qin Yu remained expressionless. "Thank you." After he left, the female cultivator took out a jade slip. This was written, "The disciple of a mysterious alchemy grandmaster, the Eastern Mountains Sect's Qin Yu, entered the Canyon Dwell City Branch Division at around 5 o'clock today. He spent 5,800 spirit stones to purchase 4 types of difficulties in breaking into the Golden Core Realm, as well as methods to resolve them. It is inferred that the reason is medicinal residue." After marking the date, she turned around and slapped the wall. A black hole appeared and she tossed the jade slip in. As Qin Yu left Heaven-Seek Pavilion, he naturally didn't know of any of this. He turned around and frowned. Just as he was about to leave, did the female cultivator's words mean something, or was it really just a coincidence? He shook his head, suppressing these thoughts, and quickly left. Whether it was intentional or not, the information on the Sky Thunder Bamboo was extremely useful to him. That was what mattered the most. Chapter 38. Genius 1 Second, remember if you want to go? This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. An hour later, Qin Yu appeared at the largest restaurant in Canyon Dwell City. This was a place where dragons and snakes mixed together and was also well informed. Before he even finished eating, he had already gotten what he needed. The various sects of the Southern Empire had set up generous rewards for those who fought against the demonic path. Those who killed demonic path cultivators could accumulate merit points and exchange them for treasures on the 100 treasure list. The 100 treasure list was sold everywhere and was priced at a single spirit stone. Qin Yu tossed 2 spirit stones to the waiter. The waiter smiled and hurried away, soon returning with a jade slip. Probing it with his divine sense, he found that there were indeed many treasures on the 100 treasure list. There were cultivation methods, magic tools, pills, materials, and all sorts of other treasures. Qin Yu quickly swept his eyes over and found information about the Sky Thunder Bamboo in the 10th position. Ancient spirit plant Sky Thunder Bamboo root, 800 years old, only one. 10,000 merit points can be exchanged for it. Qin Yu put away the jade slip, his eyes brightening. This was actually a living 800-year-old plant. This couldn't be any better. With the little blue lamp in hand, if he could obtain this Sky Thunder, then the problem of breaking into the Golden Core Realm would be easily solved. Now, the only problem was what identity would he enter the battlefield with. He couldn't use the identity of the Eastern Mountain Sect's Qin Yu anymore, and he also had to change his appearance. Otherwise, once he was discovered, there would be great trouble. To reach the 9th level of Foundation establishment in 3 years, there was definitely a problem. After leaving the restaurant, Qin Yu went to a magic tool shop and bought an appearance-changing mask for 700 spirit stones. This mask could block out the divine sense of a golden core. After entering a remote alley, Qin Yu walked out again. He was an ordinary youth, completely unremarkable in the crowd. Everything was ready. All he needed was an identity. In order to guard against demonic path spies, the cultivator army was extremely strict in checking one's identity. As for the rogue cultivator identity, Qin Yu thought about it again and chose to give up on it. As he was frowning, he saw several people hurrying across from him, and his eyes flashed. He turned and followed behind them, turning left and right as he entered a long alley. The people in front of him turned around, and the one leading them coldly said, "You've been following us all this way. What is your goal?" Two cultivators appeared behind him, blocking his way. Qin Yu had a calm expression. He hadn't hidden his tracks to begin with, so it was normal for him to be discovered. He turned his hand and took out a black token. Kong Xian's expression changed slightly. The Patriarch's order. His eyes were filled with surprise. "You are," Qin Yu lightly said. "Who I am isn't important. What's important is whether or not the Kong family is willing to keep their promise." Kong Xian hesitated for a moment before cupping his hands together. This Patriarch token is something the Kong family gifted to a Grandmaster. Although I don't know what your relationship is with the Grandmaster, since the Patriarch token is in fellow Taoist hands, and you also know the reason. The Kong family is naturally duty-bound. Patriarch. Someone beside him looked anxious. "We still have important matters to attend to. We can't afford to delay." Kong Xian said solemnly, "My Kong family owes a great debt of gratitude to Grandmaster. There's no need to say anything more." He raised his head. "May I ask, fellow Taoist, what matter you need my Kong family's help with?" Qin Yu said, "I want to join the cultivator army. I need proof of identity." Kong Xian heaved a sigh of relief and said hurriedly, "This is not difficult. Fellow Taoist is related to the Grandmaster, so it is impossible for you to be a spy of the demonic path. The Kong family can vouch for you." He turned and said, "Kong Lin, bring this. I am Ning Qin. Bring fellow Taoist Ning back to his residence first." Kong Xian cupped his hands together. "I have important matters to attend to right now, so I ask that you forgive me for my lack of manners." Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "It's no problem." Kong Xian quickly led his people away. Kong Lin had an anxious expression. He wanted to follow, but there was nothing he could do. His complexion was a bit gloomy. He glanced at Qin Yu and said, "Come with me." His tone was a bit harsh, but for better or worse he knew that Qin Yu was the Patriarch's guest, so he didn't go too far. "This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." Qin Yu wanted to ask about this, but seeing that Kong Lin didn't want to say anything, he nodded and followed behind, happy to be left alone. The Kong family actually had over 200 people, including the elderly, the weak, women, and children. It seemed as if the entire family had moved here. It was a bit strange. After all, everyone knew that although Canyon Dwell City was firm and had cultivators from all over gathered here, they still might not be able to defend it. With the demonic path style, if the city were to be broken through, then all lives would be lost. Qin Yu's arrival attracted an extremely small amount of attention. After Kong Lin explained himself, no one bothered to pay attention to him anymore. All of them had anxious looks on their faces. However, there were several youths that weren't afraid of strangers. After a moment of hesitation, they moved closer and pretended to be mature as they began to inquire about Qin Yu's background. Qin Yu smiled as he conversed with them. He didn't say anything, but the several youths spilled everything they knew, spitting out everything they knew. It turned out that the Kong family had been persecuted by their former enemies and had moved to Canyon Dwell City in order to seek help and avoid calamity. It was no wonder that Kong Xian and the others had anxious expressions just now. Qin Yu sat in a corner of the courtyard, casually chatting with the several youths. Occasionally, Several Kong family members would glance over, but as they saw the scene, they curled their lips and looked away. He was originally someone with an unknown background, and it seemed that he didn't have any skills. Now that the family was facing a great calamity, no one had the time to bother with him. As time passed, Chinyu was completely forgotten. When it was time for the Kong family to eat, no one invited him to the table. Instead, several youths brought some food over. Chinyu smiled and didn't refuse. As the sun began to set in the west, Kong Xian and his group returned. Although they didn't say anything, their gloomy complexion indicated the result of their trip. The atmosphere in the Kong family became even more oppressive. During dinner, Kong Xian thought of Chinyu. He ordered someone to invite him to eat, but he was glared at by a great uncle. A great calamity has descended upon us, so where do we have the time to entertain outsiders? You and I should think of a way to get through this. Kong Xian's heart filled with worry, and he soon cast Chinyu to the back of his mind. That night, the Kong family didn't sleep, but they still hadn't found a way. Chinyu lay down on a cart, his head resting on the bedding that a Kong family boy had brought over. He leisurely looked up at the sky. Tonight, the sky was clear and hazy, and the moon was hazy. Tomorrow, there would be wind and rain. The sky was bright, and the wind howled. The gray vault of heaven left one's heart heavy. During breakfast, the entire Kong family was in a gloomy mood. Even the several lively boys obediently sat in their chairs, not daring to make the least bit of noise. Kong Xian finally saw Chinyu. A trace of guilt flashed across his face. My family is facing a great change, and I've neglected fellow Taoist Ning. In a moment, I will write a letter of guarantee. Fellow Taoist should quickly leave lest you be implicated by my Kong family. These words caused Chinyu's opinion of him to change a great deal. He smiled and said, "It's fine. It's just a few twists and turns, but I'm sure I'll be able to overcome them soon." Perhaps because his smile was too dazzling, the Kong family's uncle coldly snorted. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If it was just a small problem, my Kong family wouldn't be in such a sorry state." He turned around and scolded. "Our family is already exhausted from dealing with the situation, yet you're still stirring up trouble and acting as a guarantor for an unknown person. If something happens, wouldn't that be adding insult to injury?" Kong Xian blushed red. "Great uncle is worrying too much. Fellow Taoist Ning Qin has the patriarch token in his hand, so there shouldn't be any problems with his status." The great uncle's expression changed slightly, as if he had thought of something. He let out a low snort and didn't say anything else. If the one who came with the order was that grandmaster, everyone in the Kong clan would definitely be respectful and courteous. However, the one who came was only a foundation establishment cultivator. In the current situation, they naturally couldn't care less. Kong Xian awkwardly said, "Fellow Taoist Ning Qin, please eat." Chinyu nodded, no longer speaking. The tasteless breakfast was quickly removed. Kong Xian went to his study and wrote a letter. He handed it to Chinyu. "Fellow Taoist Ning Qin, take it. You can go to the army to receive your identity card." Chinyu cupped his hands together. "Thank you." Kong Xian pendulum. "If this chapter isn't finished, please turn the page." He waved his hand. "It was my Kong family that was rude. I hope fellow Taoist doesn't mind. Allow me to escort you out." Just as the two arrived at the courtyard doors were kicked open. Several black-clothed cultivators stood outside. "Kong family, it's been a long time since we last met." With a loud shout, the middle-aged man in the lead strode forwards. He arrogantly swept his eyes left and right, as if he didn't consider anyone beneath him. Kong Xian's complexion changed. He clenched his teeth and said, "Han Chung, my Kong family has already moved to Canyon Dwell City. What else do you want?" Han Chung sneered. "I don't want anything. It's just that my family's old ancestor is interested in Senior Kong's golden core. I asked the Kong family to part with it." "Delusional!" Kong Xian roared. Han Chung, don't go too far. Otherwise, if we all perish together, my Kong family might not fear you." A deep and low voice sounded out from outside the door. "Perish together? Juniors like you aren't worthy of that." A white-haired old man walked in. He was tall and had an imposing aura. A divine light flashed in his eyes, and an invisible aura covered the courtyard. Kong Xian and the other Kong family cultivators behind him all paled. Golden Core Realm. Although he was only at the early second level of cultivation, that was more than enough to roll over the entire Kong family. Kong Xian clenched his teeth and cupped his hands together. "Greetings, Senior Han. With Senior's Golden Core cultivation, could it be that you wish to bully us and attack us juniors?" Han Cheng and the others retreated to the side. "Greetings, old ancestor." The Han family old ancestor had an indifferent expression. "You should be asking that old freak Kong. After he broke into the Golden Core realm in the past, did he care about our status when he expelled my Han family from East Stream Town? There is no need to speak any further. Hand over old freak Kong's Golden Core. Otherwise I will attack you." Qin Yu stood on the side, listening to the curses of the cultivators on both sides. He had a general idea of what was happening. In the early years, the Kong family and the Han family were both cultivation families of East Stream Town. Because of all sorts of problems, both sides had accumulated a deep grudge against each other. After the Kong family old ancestor reached Golden Core, he expelled the Han family. But now that the Kong family old ancestor had died, a foundation establishment elder of the Han family had managed to reach Golden Core through a lucky chance. Both sides had swapped positions. Not long after the Kong family old ancestor left East Stream Town, they were found by the Han family. After being humiliated and harassed, they finally offered to buy the Golden Core left behind by the Kong family old ancestor. Although a Golden Core was an inanimate object, if one was carefully refined it could be preserved for dozens or even hundreds of years. It possessed an extremely powerful might and could be considered a magic tool. Moreover, an even greater advantage was that it could allow one to comprehend their boundaries and break into the Golden Core realm. For ordinary cultivation families, if they didn't have a deep inheritance and deep background, the chances of them producing a Golden Core cultivator were negligible. If the Han family wanted to seize the Golden Core, they would destroy all hopes of the Kong family rising in the future. When the Kong family came to Canyondwell City, they originally wanted to ask for help from an old friend of their old ancestor. But who would have thought that things would go cold? Yesterday, after sitting for 4 hours, they hadn't even seen a single person. This was why the Han family had come to threaten them today. In all fairness, there was no right or wrong in this matter. In the past, the Kong family had expelled the Han family, and now they were being bullied by the Han family. They could be considered to have brought this upon themselves. Qin Yu had helped the Kong family retrieve their Golden Core, and today he received a letter of recommendation from them. It could be said that the Kong family had taken advantage of him, so he had no intention of interfering. Of course, this wasn't unrelated to the Kong family's attitude. Although he didn't care too much about it, he still felt a bit cold in his heart. Kong Xian's face paled. If he handed over the Golden Core, then he would be a sinner of the Kong family. But if he didn't hand it over then, he feared the Kong family would suffer a great calamity today. As he was hesitating, his great-uncle roared out, "We cannot hand over the old ancestors' Golden Core!" With all the influences gathered in Canyondwell City, I don't believe that the Han family will dare to move against my Kong family. Qin Yu swept his eyes over him and cursed him for being an idiot. With the demonic path's invasion imminent, every Golden Core cultivator was a target to be won over. Who would have the time to bother with the fallen Kong family? Although this old fellow seemed sanctimonious, he likely had his own selfish motives. With his 9th level foundation establishment cultivation, he was certainly the most qualified person in the Kong family to perceive the Golden Core. This ignorant clamor would likely draw a great calamity upon the Kong family. Chapter 39. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. As expected, the Han family old ancestor flicked his sleeves, and the great-uncle screamed out in pain as he was sent flying away. He crashed into the cart that Chinyu had been lying on last night and spat out several mouthfuls of blood. His old face was pale and filled with fear. He clearly didn't think that the Han family would really dare to attack him. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then from today onwards, the Kong family will be thoroughly disbanded. The Han family old ancestor coldly said. The aura of a golden core pressed down on everyone's chests like a boulder, making it difficult to breathe. Kong Xian pitifully smiled. The cycle of karma is not pleasant. The Kong family cannot blame others for suffering today's calamity, but fellow Taoist Ning Qin has nothing to do with my Kong family. He shouldn't be drawn into this. Senior Han, please allow him to leave. The Han family old ancestor coldly swept his eyes over him, not saying anything. Han Sheng hurriedly said, Old ancestor, this person must be related to the Kong family. Since he attacked, we should cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Kong Xian anxiously said, I can swear that fellow Taoist Ning Qin has nothing to do with the Kong family. The more anxious you are, the more my Han family cannot be careless. Whether or not this boy is related to the Kong family, he can only blame his bad luck for encountering him today. Han Sheng turned and respectfully bowed. I ask the old ancestor to make a decision. The Han family old ancestor's eyes flashed. He lightly said, I'll leave him to you to deal with. A mere foundation establishment cultivator wasn't anything at all. Han Sheng diabolically grinned. Seize this boy. He would first eliminate those unrelated people, and then slowly deal with the Kong family. In any case, he had already greeted them today, so no one would bother him. Chinyu frowned as he looked at Kong Xian. Seeing that his anxiety didn't seem fake, the coldness in his eyes faded, and he secretly shook his head. Kong Xian might have had good intentions, but he had been dragged down with him. Looking at the two approaching Han family members, Chinyu thought to himself that it was fine. Since they met again in Canyonwell City, he might as well help the Kong family once more. Another consideration was that if the Kong family was destroyed today, Kong Xian's recommendation letter might not be of much use. Chinyu looked up. His eyes leaped over the two Han family members and fell onto the Han family old ancestor. His eyes brightened, a fire burning in their depths. After 17 failed breakthroughs, the quality and quantity of magic power in his body had long since surpassed the limits of Foundation establishment. He also wanted to know just what level his current strength had reached. The Han family's old ancestor seemed like a good experimental subject. A golden core cultivator's mind was sharp. The moment Chinyu's eyes fell on him, the Han family's old ancestor sensed something, and their gazes met in the void. The old monster's heart skipped a beat. He actually felt a bit threatened. He cursed inwardly and wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, a strong gust of wind suddenly rose. Two members of the Han family flew out and rolled on the ground, crashing into the wall like gourds. The wall behind them cracked and collapsed. The old ancestor of the Han family narrowed his eyes, seeing that the two people who were sent flying were just shocked and not seriously injured. His expression relaxed a little, but his tone was still serious. Who exactly are you? Everyone from the Kong family was stunned. They stared at Chinyu in a daze as he drew back his hand. Their eyes were wide and lifeless, as if they hadn't recovered from the shock of seeing two Han family Foundation establishment masters fly away like flies. Chinyu lightly said, I have no relationship with the Kong family. I was just about to leave, but your Han family wouldn't let me, so I could only stay behind. The Han family old ancestor's momentum stagnated, and he found it hard to maintain his aggressive demeanor. He glared at the sweating Han Sheng and cupped his hands across his chest. In this matter, the Han family was indeed in the wrong first. I apologize to fellow Taoist. Hurry up and scram to the side so that fellow Taoist Ning can leave. Kong Xian had just regained his composure. At this time, he was filled with both regret and joy. If he knew that Senior Ning Qin had such a cultivation, he wouldn't have gone out to beg others. As he thought about how he hadn't greeted Senior Ning Qin at dinner last night, he couldn't help but curse out loud. If it weren't for you, how could my Kong family have been so disrespectful? As he was thinking about how he had to curry favor with Qin, no matter what, he heard the Han family old ancestors' words. Puff! He fell to his knees. Senior Ning Qin, please save my Kong family. The Kong family members weren't stupid. How could they not know that they had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai? Ashamed and scared, they all fell to their knees. Qin, you swept his eyes over them. Everyone in the Kong family felt their hearts skip a beat. They feared that this person would say, "Oh," and then leave. But to ask for his help, based on the Kong family's previous attitude, even they wouldn't be willing. For a time, all of the Kong family members wanted to cry. Oh, Kong Xian found it hard to breathe. His eyes rolled back in his head. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning and everything in front of him turned black. The only thought in his mind was that this old thief deserved to die for ruining my Kong family. I think that the Kong family's youths aren't bad. I've decided to stay and play with them for another day. A breath passed through his nostrils and into his lungs. Kong Xian's eyes rolled back into his head and he immediately recovered. The Kong family is overjoyed. We welcome Senior to stay for the time being. The Han family old ancestors' complexion darkened. Has fellow Taoist Ning made up his mind? Qin Yu pointed at the several boys from yesterday. They are all children, so how could they understand the grievances of adults? Let bygones be bygones. The Han family old ancestors' eyes were cloudy and uncertain. After a long time he said, "Since fellow Taoist Ning wants to intervene, you must first defeat me." Qin Yu smiled. I asked fellow Taoist Han to give me some pointers. He wanted to help the Kong family, but he had no intention of becoming enemies with the Han family. Old Freak Han was also a cautious person. He had left some leeway in his words. The Han family old ancestor shook his head. Canyon Dwell City currently does not allow high-level cultivators to fight. Tomorrow, I will be waiting for you on the battle platform. The Han family old ancestor left. Old Freak Han retreated today not only because of the rules of Canyonwell City, but also because he wanted to go back and investigate Qin Yu's situation so that he could make preparations. Qin Yu didn't care too much about this, but he didn't like to openly fight and expose his strength to the public. He frowned. Kong Xian's heart shrank as he saw this. Could it be that Senior Ning Qin wasn't his match? If so, then it would be difficult for the Kong family to escape this great calamity. For a time his thoughts were in chaos. Qin Yu noticed that his complexion was strange. He didn't say anything. He refused the Kong family's warm hospitality and entered his room to meditate, leaving the Kong family members outside restlessly. Shwa, shwa. The pitter-patter of rain finally began to fall. Although Canyondwell City was large, it didn't have a nascent soul guarding it. This was also the reason that the righteous and demonic factions restrained each other. Neither side had sent their peak combat strength. A nascent soul's noble status was one of the reasons, but the true reason was that this invasion of the Southern Empire could only be considered a local war between the righteous and demonic factions. The Golden Core realm was the peak combat strength on the battlefield. Thus, once news of Qin Yu and Old Freak Han's battle spread out, it immediately stirred up great waves. Countless cultivators felt their hearts surge with excitement. They decided that they would go to the military camp's battle platform tomorrow and witness a high-level battle. The sun and moon rotated, nothing else could be said. On the morning of the third day, Qin Yu pushed open the door. Kong Xian and a group of people were already respectfully waiting for him. That cold and arrogant Great uncle naturally wasn't here. Yesterday his injuries were heavy and he had been frightened to the point that he had nearly died. At this time he was hiding in his room, panic-stricken. "Greetings, Senior Ning Chin." Hearing the shouts coming from the courtyard, the great uncle shivered and a damp feeling spread out from his bed. Chin Yu wasn't in the mood to bother with him. He swept his eyes around and said, "Lead the way." Kong Xian took out a letter with both hands. He respectfully said, "Yesterday's recommendation letter was too simple and crude. It hindered Senior's prestige. I ask that you accept this letter." "Chin Yu didn't take it. What identity did you give me?" Kong Xian braced himself. The Kong family's exalted. Chin Yu's lips curved up in a smile. "You sure know what to do. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page." Abacus. Kong Xian broke out in a cold sweat. "I beg Senior Ning Chin to agree. The Kong family is willing to offer young women of suitable age to serve you as slaves." Several well-dressed young girls shyly stepped forward and bowed. Chin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. "Have them leave." Kong Xian paled. The several young girls also had bleak complexions. Chin Yu lightly said, "Is the Kong family so unoptimistic about me?" Kong Xian was about to explain when Chin Yu took the letter. "Remember, this is your Kong family's choice. If you are implicated by me in the future, do not regret it." Kong Xian was overjoyed. "No regrets, no regrets." He turned and shouted, "Hurry up and greet the exalted." Chin Yu shook his head. "Don't delay." "Yes, yes. Lord Exalted, please follow me." Kong Xian respectfully led the way. He felt as if a great stone had been lifted from his heart. As long as Chin Yu agreed, the Kong family would have a golden core protecting them. Even if they were defeated on the battle platform today, the Han family wouldn't dare to bully them too much. To have a golden core and not have one, to a small cultivation family, this was the difference between the heavens and the earth. As for the implicated Chin you spoke of, there was no such thing as not paying a price in this world. Since they had enjoyed protection, they had to be prepared to suffer a backlash. From this, Kong Xian was a rather intelligent individual. The residents of the northern district of Canyonwell City were all relocated, and a temporary military camp was set up. Cultivators from various influences were stationed here, and security was tight. Kong Xian led the way unimpeded. Along the way, all the cultivators turned to look at Chin Yu, surprise on their faces. Wasn't the Kong family's mysterious powerhouse fighting with the Han family's old ancestor? How could it be a foundation establishment cultivator? As this news spread out, there was an uproar. Many cultivators were drawn over to confirm that the one Kong Xian brought into the camp was indeed a foundation establishment realm cultivator. They were immediately enraged and felt as if they had been deceived. However, besides a small number of people that left in a huff, the vast majority stayed behind. It wasn't that they had any expectations for the Kong family's foundation establishment cultivator, but rather that they wanted to see how this brat would be blasted to pieces. Foundation establishment against Golden Core. TSK, what a great joke. With Kong Xian personally appearing and an official letter of recommendation, Chin Yu soon obtained a military identity token. This was also something used to calculate merit points. After refining it, every demonic cultivator he killed would be automatically recorded on the identity token according to their cultivation. He could then use this to exchange for items on the 100 treasure list. Chin Yu didn't pay attention to the strange gazes of the several cultivators in the army. He revealed a light smile. After going through so many twists and turns, he had finally joined the Alliance army. All that was left was to accumulate merit points and exchange for the Sky Thunder bamboo. But before that, he had to settle the matter with the Kong family first. "Let's go." Kong Xian nodded. Just as the two were about to leave, there was a flash of light in front of them. A middle-aged cultivator was rapidly walking towards them. He had a grand and dignified appearance, and his blue clothes made him seem even more extraordinary. He said in a low voice, "Kong Xian, a great war is imminent. The powerhouses of the alliance cannot fight." His eyes fell on Qin Yu, and he fell silent. He frowned. "Who is he? Aren't you here to help the Kong family exalted obtain an identity token?" Kong Xian respectfully bowed. "Greetings, Senior Zhu Bluecloud. Reporting to Senior. This is my Kong family's exalted, Senior Ning Qin." Zhu Bluecloud's face darkened. "Kong Xian, I will warn you once more. The Alliance does not allow high-level cultivators to fight. Immediately find the Kong family's exalted and stop him from ascending the stage." Kong Xian had a bitter expression. "This junior isn't lying. Senior Ning Qin is here." Zhu Bluecloud was so angry that he actually laughed. "A Foundation establishment exalted, you really dare to say such things. If this were true, then why would that old freak Han have retreated yesterday? Did he think he was an idiot? Kong Xian, if you continue to play dumb, then don't blame me for punishing your Kong family with my status as the Alliance's punishment elder." Chapter 40. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Qin Yu suddenly said. Han Beishan has already stepped onto the stage. "Love, go, small, say, Netku." Zhu Bluecloud's complexion became increasingly ugly. What a good Kong family. Not only did the patriarch play dumb, but even a mere junior dared to call out a golden core cultivator by his name. This was simply insolent. Kong Xian, control your juniors well. If they dare to spout nonsense again, I will definitely not forgive them. Qin Yu had a light expression. Why didn't you stop Han Beishan before he stepped onto the stage? Now you want the Kong family to retreat? Is this considered preferential treatment? Shut up. Zhu Bluecloud was enraged. You little junior, how dare you disrespect me? I must punish you today so that you don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth in the future. Kong Xian shouted. Senior Zhu, he's really a consecrator of my Kong family. You're mistaken. Zhu Bluecloud froze. He turned to look at the cultivators at the registration desk. Several people quickly nodded, their complexions becoming strange. Foundation establishment realm worshippers? Had the Kong family gone mad, or had the world changed? When did a Foundation establishment cultivator dare to challenge a golden core cultivator? His complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He glanced at Qin Yu and said in a low voice, "Nonsense! As for the Han family, I will speak on your behalf. Kong Xian, hurry up and take this brat and scram. If you really want to die, go to the battlefield and kill demonic cultivators. There will be plenty of chances for you to die a violent death." Although Zhu Bluecloud's words were unpleasant to hear, he actually wanted to save Qin Yu's life. If so, then Zhu Bluecloud wasn't a bad person. Qin Yu smiled. "Don't worry, I won't die." He stepped forwards. Kong Xian hurriedly bowed and quickly followed. Zhu Bluecloud's complexion was ugly. With his status, when had he ever been ignored by a Foundation establishment cultivator? This Kong family junior was far too arrogant. He must have obtained his current cultivation smoothly and didn't know what he was capable of. Perhaps he had some tricks up his sleeve, but he actually dared to underestimate a golden core cultivator. He didn't know how the word death was written. He wanted to wash his hands of the matter, but at such a young age a sixth-layer Foundation establishment cultivator wasn't weak. It would be too much of a pity if he fell on the battle platform. Forget it, he would go to the battle platform and watch the battle. When he suffered a bit, he would save him. When the time comes, I want to see what kind of expression he has. Zhu Bluecloud turned and walked away. The knot of depression in his heart dissipated a little, and he revealed a faint smile. Although he didn't want to admit it, he found this boy to be quite pleasing to the eye. The battle platform was a place for the cultivators of the Alliance to settle their personal grievances, apart from blood feuds that could not be reconciled. most of them would stop at a certain point. Love, go, small, say, Nekka, but even so, the fight between cultivators was extremely dangerous. Whenever the winner was decided, blood would be spilled. The potholes on the surface of the fighting platform were mottled with blood and filled with invisible killing intent. Han Beishan stood on the stage, his eyes slightly closed, exuding the aura of a grandmaster. Countless gazes gathered on him, filled with awe and respect. No wonder he's a golden core cultivator. Even though he's just entered this realm, his demeanor is still extraordinary. We're far inferior. A 9th-level foundation establishment cultivator sighed, his eyes filled with envy. Beside him were people who were about the same level as him. Hearing this, they nodded repeatedly. They had all touched the peak of foundation establishment, but the more they did so, the more they understood the huge gap between foundation, establishment, and golden core. The dark-faced, large fellow cursed out loud. I originally wanted to watch a golden core battle today to confirm my own cultivation and gain some insights, but who knew I would be played for a fool? After today, I will definitely look for the Kong family's trouble. A foundation establishment realm exalted is truly the greatest joke in the world. I wonder if the entire Kong family was scared silly or if they were just trying to stall for time. Since we're here, we might as well just treat this as a farce. I want to see just what that exalted from the Kong family will be like when he faces Senior Han. As Kong Xian listened to the discussions around him, he rolled his eyes and cursed them all for being idiots. Foundation establishment realm? With a casual wave of his hand, he was able to force back 2 foundation establishment masters of the Han family and temporarily scare away that old ghost Han Beishan? What kind of joke was this? Senior Ningqin was absolutely at the Golden Core realm. It was just that he had used some unknown method to conceal his aura. Perhaps he wasn't as strong as that old freak Han, but it was more than enough to protect himself. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Just wait. There will be a time for you to look for your eyeballs. Kong Xian respectfully shouted out, Exalted, please step onto the stage. The Kong family cultivators that had gathered behind him all spoke up. Exalted, please step onto the stage. With this, it would be hard not to attract attention. Qin Yu instantly gathered everyone's eyes. Many of them were shocked and shocked. It was only now that they were able to confirm that the Kong family had found a foundation establishment exalted. For a time the scene was thrown into chaos. On the stage, Han Beishan opened his eyes. A divine light flashed, and the aura of a golden core rose up. It was like a coiling serpent looking down, its dense aura causing one's scalp to tingle. After the ruckus, everything fell silent. Countless people paled. They cried out in alarm. A golden core cultivator was truly terrifying. Qin Yu looked straight ahead, his eyes meeting Han Beishan's. Then he calmly stepped onto the stage. The flow of people automatically parted. As Zhu Blue Cloud rushed over, he was startled. What a brat that loved to show off. But the gaze of a golden core cultivator wasn't easy to withstand. Han Beishan had already used some of his divine sense to suppress it, so he was likely just forcing himself to endure it. The golden core great, Tao wasn't just empty words. The most exciting part was yet to come. Qin Yu arrived in front of the stage. With a step, he rose up from the ground and steadily landed on it. Han Beishan's pupils shrank. Behind him, Zhu Blue Cloud had a dignified expression. He could clearly feel that there weren't any magic power fluctuations from Qin Yu's step. In other words, he had relied entirely on the strength of his mortal body to leap onto the 10-foot-high stage. Any cultivator that paid a bit of attention to their mortal body could accomplish this. But to leap up over 10 feet from the ground like he did, that was something that not even 1 in 10,000 could do. Could this brat's trump card be the strength of his mortal body? Zhu Blue Cloud's lips curled up. He suddenly felt that this brat was even more to his liking. Who didn't know of the Earth Imperial sex, Zhu Blue Cloud? He had relied on his mortal body to create an illustrious reputation. Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. "Fellow Taoist Han, please." Han Beishan took a deep breath. "Let's fight." He lifted a hand and thrust out a palm. Strong winds surged up, spinning around him like sharp blades. Zhu Blucloud cursed out loud. He never imagined that Han Beishan would use his full strength against a Foundation establishment junior. Although he was here, he couldn't save him in time. As he thought about how a junior he liked would soon be turned into a pile of bloody flesh and blood, his complexion darkened to the point where it looked like it could squeeze out water. Qin Yu's eyes narrowed and he stepped forwards. His figure was like a fierce tiger breaking out of its cage, his momentum explosive as he violently broke into the whirlwind. This action surpassed everyone's expectations, and even Han Beishan was startled. But soon his eyes widened in disbelief. Qin Yu's robes fluttered in the wind and flowers of blood splashed out. But none of this was able to stop Qin Yu's advance. Han Beishan was experienced and wanted to temporarily retreat, but just as he moved, he came to a sudden stop. An iron-like hand grasped his throat, causing blood to flow out and drip onto the stage. Qin Yu's hair was messy and his robes were torn. He slowly said, "You lost." At this time, the world fell deathly silent. Qin Yu let go and took a step back. He turned and leapt off the stage, like a mountain crashing into the sea. The cultivators below hurriedly retreated, their eyes filled with awe and shock. Han Beishan stiffened. His clothes were soaked in a cold sweat. If this were a battlefield, he would already be a corpse. Thinking of this, his scalp tingled. He said with difficulty, "After today, the grudges between the Han and Kong families will be written off." Qin Yu paused for a moment. Then he nodded and walked away. Kong Xian and the other Kong family cultivators followed behind, ecstatic expressions on their faces. If one looked carefully, they would discover that their stomachs were all wet. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. They were trembling with excitement. He had won. The Lord Exalted had actually won. Bang! There was an uproar on the stage. To forcefully resist a golden core magic technique and subdue Senior Han in a single strike, this person's strength is terrifying. A 9th-level Foundation establishment cultivator muttered to himself, his eyes shining with a frightening brightness. If he could learn such a technique, wouldn't he also be able to roll over a golden core? Most of the people around him had similar thoughts. Their faces were cloudy and uncertain, all of them thinking the same thing. Would Lord Ning Qin accept a disciple? Suddenly, someone quietly said, "Who was it just now that said that after today they would look for trouble with the Kong family?" The dark-faced, large fellow turned and walked away, as if he didn't know anything at all. Several people watched as the large fellow left, disdain in their eyes. But soon, they discovered that this fellow was chasing after the Kong family cultivators. They couldn't help but curse inwardly. How could they allow him to be one step ahead of them? Whoosh, whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the area around the stage emptied out. Countless cultivators rushed towards the Kong family. Zhu Blucloud stood there. As the disciplinary elder of the Alliance, there was no cultivator in Canyon Dwell City who didn't respectfully bow to him when they saw him. But at this time he was like air. Nearly 100 Foundation establishment cultivators hurried past him, their eyes never pausing for a moment. The corners of his lips twitched. He muttered to himself, "I made a mistake." Qin Yu had already expected what would happen next. Not long after he left the stage, he separated from the Kong family and put on a black robe. As he walked out from a remote corner, he just happened to run into the Foundation establishment cultivators that were rushing towards the Kong family. He smiled and turned without hesitation, heading straight for the city gates. After obtaining the status of an Alliance cultivator, the Kong family's crisis had been resolved. Qin Yu didn't want to delay any longer. He only had one sky thunder bamboo. If someone exchanged for it ahead of time, that would create countless troubles. 3 months later, in the wilderness, billowing demonic energy gushed out, emitting ear-piercing whistling sounds. A demonic golden core paled, fear in his eyes. He never thought he would run into that evil star. The news from yesterday was that he was thousands of miles away. So how could he appear here? The demonic cultivator roared in his heart. That dog scout has ruined my life. With a cold sweat on his forehead, the demonic golden core fiercely turned his head. A cold aura brushed past his scalp, and several strands of hair left him panic-stricken. Damn it, this magic art clearly looked like a cold blade. It was a common technique used by Foundation establishment cultivators, but it was actually so strong. With his heart filled with fear, he lost all will to fight. All he could think of was how to escape. At this time, there was the sound of breaking air behind him. The demonic golden core cursed inwardly. It's coming again! He avoided the attack of a small black flag, but before he could relax, a pitch-black figure appeared in the surging demonic energy, smashing down with an ink jade scepter. As the demonic golden core was about to dodge, he felt a sharp pain in his mind. His body stiffened, and he could only stare with wide eyes as the ink jade scepter fell down. Bang! A headless corpse fell to the ground, blood gushing out like a fountain. After killing the demonic golden core, the pitch-black figure scattered and fused into a small flag, flying back into the hands of the youth. He fell on the ground and rummaged through the flag before taking out a token. As he looked at it, a bright light flashed on his face. The 10th. This youth was Chinyu. Canyon Dwell City had fallen into the flames of war. The righteous and demonic paths were in full swing, but he didn't join in on the fun. Instead, he sneaked into the demonic paths territory and hunted down demonic path powerhouses. The Alliance calculated merit points based on one's cultivation. Hunting down high-level demonic cultivators was naturally the fastest way to obtain merit points. A golden core was equal to 100 Foundation establishment demonic cultivators.